Chapter 3160. Everyone was flabbergasted. What was going on? Old Pa became a coquettish bitch? Why did these words sound a bit off? Everyone secretly shifted their gazes to Old Pa's side. Lady Jojo expressionlessly looked at Old Pa, who appeared to be in a daze after being slapped. Her gaze shifted to Zhongli Jiwei, and she slowly walked towards her. Duan Yu couldn't resist facepalming. Why couldn't these people let their Jojo off slap? Lady Jojo raised her small hand and returned a slap to Zhongli Jiwei's face. She then backhanded her 2 more slaps, returning it to her thrice. Zhongli Jiwei covered her small face in shock and glared angrily at the woman in front of her. Ever since she entered the mystic realm, oh no, it should be said that ever since this woman returned to the capital, she, Zhongli Jiwei, had never had a comfortable day. Who are you calling a coquettish bitch? Lady Jojo sternly glared at her. She beckoned with her hand, and a ferrule floating with ink-colored light appeared in her palm. Don't think that Lady Jojo is a fool and can't understand your indirect insults. On the surface, she was scolding Old Pa for having no love for her teammates and not coming to help. But in reality, she was scolding Jojo. She was scolding Jojo for not coming to help and even instigating Mo Lien, Duan Yu, and the others not to help. That was exactly what she meant. Lady Jojo's small face was cold as she lightly patted Zhongli Jiwei's head with the ferrule. Say it again. How did she become a coquettish bitch? Simply laughable. Lady Jojo's small face was stoic as she sized up Zhongli Jiwei. It's not too late for you to change your words now. Zhongli Jiwei stared at her angrily, her face flushed red. With so many people watching, how could she be willing to admit defeat under the watchful eyes of so many people? So she stiffened her head and coldly said, "You admitted it yourself out of guilt slap." Zhongli Jiwei was about to go mad from anger. How could this person beat her up so brazenly? Stop. Gu Yishuan frowned and shouted gravely, "Crown Prince Consort, what are you doing? Let's talk things out." Arbor raised his eyes and glanced at him. Then he grabbed Zhongli Jiwei's hair and kicked her back. Pump! Zhongli Jiwei suddenly fell flat on her face. Her face was fiercely pressed against the ground. Xiangchang Commandery Princess shrieked, You! Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. "I have a medicine to treat stuttering. It costs 80,000 spirit coins. Do you need it?" Everyone was speechless. The little crown princess was born with the ability to remain expressionless and infuriate others. Xiangchang Commandery Princess was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She pointed at Arbor and strode forward. Her face was filled with anger. You were the one who kicked me just now." Damn, she didn't know at first. Previously, when she was running towards Brother Ali, she was suddenly sent flying by someone's kick. When she got up to take a look, she was almost scared to vomit by the rotten corpse puppet face in front of her. She had been silently tangled up since just now. How could Brother Ali be so heartless? He actually kicked Xiangchang out. In the end, when she saw Arbor kick Zhongli Jiwei to the ground, she instantly realized that she had wronged Brother Ali. Brother Ali didn't kick her away. It was clearly this woman in front of her. She kicked her far away with one leg. Chapter 3161. Commandery Princess Xiangchang was so infuriated that she broke into a sprint toward Xiao Mu. "How could you send me flying with a kick? Why did this person look so irritating?" It was such a good opportunity to jump into her big brother Ali's arms, but this damned woman sent it flying with a kick. Arbor saw Xiangchang Princess running over with a fierce look on her face. Without thinking, she sent out a kick and sent her flying again. How annoying. You won't even let a ferret go. What reason do you have for me to let you go now? Lord Jojo silently complained his heart. Then, he pulled Zhongli Jiwei's hair up. Say it. Who are you calling a flirtatious slut? Zhongli Jiwei was so angry that her whole body was trembling. She thought to herself that she had seen a ghost. She was actually being suppressed by this woman, and there was no room for her to resist. Gu Yishuan was a little angry. "Crown Princess, you've gone too far." Arbor glanced at him. "Why? Are you trying to be a hero and save the damsel in distress? You, Gui Xuan couldn't help but feel a little suffocated by her indifferent attitude. Xiao Mu gazed at him coldly. Don't force yourself to stand out in all matters. If you don't have what it takes, then you're stupid if you insist on making a move. These people were really funny. Zhongli Jiwei was pointing at the mulberry tree and scolding the locust tree. Wasn't it too much to scold her for no reason? Was it too much to be pressed down by her now? Her mouth is too smelly. I'm just washing it for her out of kindness. After saying this, Xiao Mu took out an exquisite flask from Paradise Planet and placed it next to Zhongli Jiwei's lips with a sneer. A boy's urine for you to rinse your mouth. You're really lucky. Everyone was dumbfounded. Zhongli Jiwei's eyes widened in shock. She thought that Arbor wouldn't dare, but in reality, there was nothing that Arbor wouldn't dare to do. She grabbed Zhongli Jiwei's hair and pulled her scalp, forcing her to look up. The spout of the pot fell down. Everyone immediately revealed a horrified expression. The Crown Prince Consort was too ferocious. Zhongli Jiwei's face flushed red, and she hastily shut her small mouth, revealing an expression that looked like she was about to cry for being bullied. She turned her head to look at Mo Lien with teary eyes. The little stoic was baffled. She slapped her chest and said impatiently, I'm the one who bullied you. Why are you glaring at Jojo's lotus? Mo Lien, Duan Yu couldn't resist chuckling, and he face-bombed in a conflicted mood. Everyone couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Was she glaring at Prince Mo? She was clearly pitifully asking Prince Mo for help. He didn't know what kind of expression this little stoic had in her eyes. Once a very normal matter popped out of her mouth, it felt like something wasn't right. Rinse your mouth with the boy's urine. You can keep your mouth clean in the future. Arbor directly gave Zhongli Jiwei a pot of urine to wash her face and rinse her mouth, then threw a copper pot on her face. Ow! Zhongli Jiwei choked when she opened her mouth. After coughing twice, she felt that her entire body, face, and mouth, was filled with the smell of urine. She was so disgusted that she retched repeatedly. She turned her face to the side and punched the ground, gagging, crying, and cursing angrily. Arbor looked at her expressionlessly. Stay far away from me when you see me in the future. Don't make things difficult for yourself. You bitch. Zhongli Jiwei staggered to her feet and pointed at Xiao Mu, sending a burst of spiritual energy flying over without any explanation. Chapter 3162. Arbor coldly stared back. The Holywood vine drilled out of his hand and scattered Zhongli Jiwei's spiritual energy with a vine whip. Immediately after, he lashed out with his whip again. Even though they were far away, everyone could only hear a loud paw sound. A whip mark immediately appeared on Zhongli Jiwei's body. She curled up in pain and fell to the ground with a plop. Miss Zhongli. Gui Xuan quickly flew forward and stood in front of Zhongli Jiwei. He roared at Arbor. Are you done? Ignorant. Jojo's eyes suddenly turned bone-chilling. He raised his hand, and the vine whip formed from Holywood wriggled like a snake and lashed at Gui Xuan. Naturally, Gui Xuan wouldn't stand there stupidly and take Jojo's whip. Therefore, Gui Xuan dodged, and the whip fell on Zhongli Jiwei's body again. She had just lifted her body up when she suddenly fell to the ground. Her entire body was in so much pain that she howled. You see, you don't want to save her either, Arbor coldly said. Why do you have to pretend to be a saint? Me? I don't buy it. After saying this, a pair of pitch-black eyes, like the deep waters of a cold lake, coldly stared at Gui Xuan. With a whoosh, he swept to his side. Just now, when this miss slapped people and scolded them, you didn't say anything. When she pointed at Old Pa's face and scolded the crown princess, you didn't say anything. Now you think you have a right to jump out and say anything? Get lost, Arbor angrily roared. With a flick of his fingers, dozens of purple talismans with cold light jumped up and quickly attacked Gui Xuan's body. Gui Xuan was shocked and quickly retreated. At the same time, the dozens of attack talismans were already heading straight for him. Bang, 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 bang. You people really are hypocrites. Xiao Mu gazed coldly at the flustered man who was in dire straits from the explosion of the attack talismans. It's as if in this world, you're the only ones who are allowed to casually scold and disrespect others, but others are not allowed to retaliate and disrespect you. She stared coldly at Gui Xuan and suddenly flicked her wrist. Go bite her to death. Gui Xuan was shocked. She didn't expect that her attempt to save someone would backfire. Instead, she had angered the young crown princess and made her want to kill someone. Crown princess, please have mercy. Gu Yixuan hurriedly shouted. Miss Zhongli knows her mistake. Gu Yixuan wasn't a fool. He finally realized what was going on. In front of the little crown princess, you really can't force yourself. In fact, this small matter might only require an apology from Miss Zhongli to be completely resolved. It was also possible that if she didn't intervene after the little crown princess rinsed Miss Zhongli's mouth, this matter would be over. Even if Miss Zhongli retaliated in a flustered and exasperated manner, she would only be whipped twice by the little crown princess, however. Now, the matter seemed to have become more and more complicated because of her own interference. Gu Yixuan hurriedly reached out to help Zhongli Jiwei up from the ground. He didn't care that she was covered in urine and quickly said, Miss Zhongli, quickly apologized to the crown princess. It was more important to save her life first, Gu Yixuan thought. Unexpectedly, Zhongli Jiwei angrily pushed his hand away. Her face flushed red, and she scolded. I apologized to her? Who does she think she is? Chapter 3163. She's just a lowly woman from the lower star domain. My father is Great General Zhongli. I'm the eldest miss of the Zhongli estate. Let's see if she dares to kill me. She was so infuriated by Arbor that she had completely lost her rationality and didn't know what she was saying anymore. She only knew that she had lost so much face in front of everyone today. She had really lost all her face. She could really throw caution to the wind now. Ah! Zhongli Jiwei suddenly screamed, and all the voices came to an abrupt halt. With a bang, she fell to the ground with her face facing the sky. A little blue snake slithered out from under her body. It raised its little head and scanned the surroundings before hissing and flicking its tongue. It hastily slithered back to its little master's side and obediently climbed onto her wrist. Old Pack's face had already turned pale from fright. He hurriedly said in self-reproach, sorry. This happened because of me. He didn't know what to say now. This Miss Zhongli usually had a bad temper and yelled at everyone, but he didn't expect that she would suffer such a huge loss in the hands of this stoic-faced little crown princess today. These aristocrats of the great divine continent shouldn't implicate a small citizen like him when they fought among themselves. Arbor glanced at Old Pack indifferently. It has nothing to do with you. This Zhongli Jiwei had been scolding her the entire time. She had been scolding her Arbor the entire time. Old Pack was merely being used as a raft by that woman. Arbor glanced coldly at Zhongli Jiwei and curled her lips mockingly. Do you think I don't dare to kill you? Why don't you ask the king of hell yourself when you go to hell? Gu Yixuan was truly stupefied. Although he had seen the young crown prince consort's swift and decisive manner when she made a move, he truly didn't expect that the young crown prince consort would dare to make a move on Miss Zhongli. Gu Yixuan glanced at Prince Imo, who was watching the commotion from the side, and almost didn't know what to say. What a strange woman, Prince Imo muttered. He stepped forward and held Arbor's little hand. Later, I'll ask the old man to remove that old bastard's position. Otherwise, he would think that being a great general was a big deal. Usually, he didn't see many places where he could make contributions. He just stayed at home every day and used his past achievements to invite this and that. It was detestable just looking at it. Did he really think that this world was conquered by Zhongli's family? Duanyu speechlessly glanced at Prince Imo. Somehow, he felt that this guy was becoming more and more of an incapable ruler. Sir Jojo nodded expressionlessly. I think your father doesn't have a good eye for people. That's right. Emolian immediately nodded. That's why I'm quite worried about him. He's always surrounded by sycophants. No wonder the development of Shenzhou is so slow. In the future, the world will depend on the two of us. Duanyu, He felt that compared to Emollien's poisonous mouth, he was more benevolent to his royal father in terms of shamelessness. If Prince Emo claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first, saying that the world would depend on the two of them in the future. When the emperor of the Shinjo province heard this, he would definitely fall to the ground in anger. Gu Yishuan opened his mouth and couldn't resist saying, "Crown Princess." How could the little crown princess still pay attention to him? She directly turned around and pulled Emollien away. Huang Sheng suddenly shouted, "Hey, that main hall has appeared. It's in front, the main hall we went to before." Chapter 3164. Arbor's eyes lit up, and he turned to nod at Huang Sheng. "Come." After saying that, he quickly pulled Emollien and called out to Duan Yu and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal before dashing towards the main hall that appeared out of thin air. Could it be that the space inside the mystic realm is changing again? There should be another 4 hours before it changes. Emollien calculated the time and said, "It's not time yet." Arbor nodded and wanted to say something else, but Qiuqiu shouted, "Master, Master, the little monk is making a fuss about wanting to come out. He's rolling around on the ground, and I can't control him." Wasn't rolling around your favorite thing to do? Could it be that rolling around was contagious? Sir Jojo said with a stoic face, "Then let him out." The little monk was released, and his chubby body hung on a Jojo's arm as he whined. "Benefactress, this little monk couldn't pee at all just now." Arbor. Emollien was exasperated as she pulled him over and threw him onto her back. "It must have been hard on you." The little monk continued to grumble. "Benefactress, it's wrong of you to force this little monk to pee like this." "It won't happen next time," Sir Jojo said with a dark expression. The little monk sniffled. "Benefactress, you said you would keep bringing this little monk with you after entering the mystic realm, but you keep lying to me and tossing me somewhere else at the drop of a hat. I'll keep bringing you with me from now on." "Benefactress, this little monk's stomach is a bit hungry." Arbor. "Benefactress, can you not make Benefactress Crown Prince carry this little monk?" Emollien really wanted to slap him to the ground. She couldn't get him off even if she wanted to. Why did this imp like to prattle so much? "Benefactress, this little monk told you just now that this little monk's stomach is very hungry." Duan Yu couldn't resist guffawing. This guy really made people laugh uncontrollably. Arbor took out a white and chubby bun from his inner world and dashed to Emollien's side, stuffing the little monk's mouth with the bun. The world fell silent. Jojo let out a sigh of relief. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal floated around them for a while and suddenly asked, "Hey, have you noticed? Although the palace is right in front of us, we've already sprinted for over a dozen kilometers, and it's still just a short distance away." Hearing this, everyone stopped in their tracks. As soon as they stopped, Huang Sheng and Old Pa also stopped. Behind them, Gu Yishuan, Xiangchang Princess, and the others also stopped. Gu Yishuan was still holding the unconscious Zhongli Jiwei. She raised her eyes and looked in the direction of Arbor. She gritted her teeth and said, "Crown Princess, Ms. Zhongli was bitten by your poisonous pet. There is no antidote." This Gu Yishuan had caused her trouble again and again. Arbor's attitude towards this person was already extremely impatient. Gu Yishuan, who was holding Zhongli Jiwei's arm, stiffened. Lowering his head to look at Zhongli Jiwei, he saw that her complexion was incomparably dark, and her breathing was faintly discernible. This poison was truly vicious and ruthless. It had only been a few moments since she was poisoned, but she seemed to be on the verge of dying. This Zhongli Jiwei was a level 9 spiritual cultivator, yet she couldn't withstand that little blue snake's poison. Gu Yishuan secretly glanced at the young crown prince consort again with some wariness in her heart. Arbor simply couldn't be bothered to care what this person was thinking. Whatever he wanted to guard against had nothing to do with her. Chapter 3165. As long as this Gu Yishuan didn't find trouble with her, she naturally wouldn't neurotically find trouble with him. If he had eyes, he naturally wouldn't find trouble with her again. It's clearly this main hall. Look. Sun Moon Temple, do you see it? Huang Sheng pointed ahead at the inverted signboard hanging above the main hall. This is the main hall I came to before. It was also around here that I met Miss Chi and the Fatty brothers. Emolien narrowed her eyes, and her gaze gradually shifted to a certain spot as she tilted her head up slightly. Following his gaze, Xiao Mu looked over, and a spectacular spectacle suddenly appeared before her eyes. The entire sky was covered by a layer of aqua blue film, as if it was a shallow ocean. Under the refraction of the sunlight, it emitted a transparent arc. Above their heads was a row of extremely extravagant and resplendent main halls hanging upside down. And the main hall they saw on the horizon earlier was merely a projection of this main hall hanging upside down in the sky. Colored glass spires, golden houses, and those rows of main halls were hanging downwards, and the spires were shining brightly above their heads. The most flabbergasting thing was that there seemed to be several people hanging upside down on the top of the colored glass spires. Without exception, those people's faces were hideous and distorted, and they were strung up on the top of the colored glass spires like candied haws on a skewer. Everyone shuddered from the bottom of their hearts. Oh my God, what was going on? On the other hand, Xiao Mu, Emolien, and the others' expressions turned solemn, and they unexpectedly retreated several steps, then several more steps. This is the other boundary of the Sun-Moon mystic realm, Arbor immediately said. Run, Duan Yu suddenly ordered, and he started running backwards with Emolien, Arbor, and the others. At the same time, this piece of land was slowly tilting, and they were like small pets trapped in a square box. As this box slowly flipped, they were upside down one by one. Gui Xuan's face immediately changed, and she subconsciously tightened her grip on Zhongli Jiwei. He suddenly understood what was going on with the people strung up on the crystal spire. It must be because when the box was flipped over, those people didn't have time to escape and fell straight down. They came into close contact with the spire of the hall and fell straight onto the glazed roof. He gave it a try, and sure enough, levitating was impossible. It turned out that during the process of space displacement, a person's ability to float would be blocked. Gui Xuan took a deep breath. He was practically dragging Zhongli Jiwei as he ran. Then he realized that his speed had been slowed down quite a bit. At this time, Arbor and Emolien's group had already run out of the boundary. At the same time, they dragged the panting Huang Sheng and Old Pack out of the boundary. Old Pack panted heavily as he sat on the ground, panting heavily. His pupils suddenly contracted as he looked at the somewhat unbelievable scene in front of him. That boundary was like a box, and it was currently flipping over at an even faster speed. Gui Xuan finally chose to give up on Zhongli Jiwei in his internal struggle and rapidly retreated from the boundary. When he looked back, he saw that Zhongli Jiwei had already opened her eyes and was moving her lips at him, glaring at him hatefully. In the end, she screamed and fell down with the others. Gui Xuan closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he saw that Zhongli Jiwei had already become one of the candied haws on the glazed roof. Chapter 3166. Gui Xuan subconsciously turned back to glance at Arbor. He originally thought that she would look at him with disdain, but unexpectedly, she didn't even spare him a glance. He only felt sorrow in his heart, as if a fox grieved for the death of a rabbit. Arbor had seen all kinds of faces in life and death situations, so she wasn't surprised that Gui Xuan could make such a choice. In fact, no one could find fault with Gui Xuan's decision. In a life and death situation, who would truly risk their life for someone who was neither a relative nor a friend? Gui Xuan's slender face had a trace of haze. He was somewhat depressed, but there was also an inexplicable anger. He didn't know what was going on. Facing this little crown princess, he always felt like he was punching cotton with no place to exert his strength. If she ignored you, you couldn't vent your anger, even if you were as angry as the sky. Gui Xuan took a deep breath and forced himself to turn back calmly. He was the most outstanding son of the Gu family, so he had to calm down and not let his anger rob him of his rationality. At this moment, the space they were in changed from top to bottom. Many people roared as they fell from Sir Jojo's side. Arbor looked at these people as if she was looking at an idiot. Emolien pulled her little hand, and with a light leap, she safely landed with Sir Jojo. When the space was completely changed, looking from afar on the horizon, there seemed to be two palaces separated by a distance, one in front and one behind. But now everyone knew that the palace behind was only a projection. Arbor pursed her lips and suddenly said, "We've been fooled." Most people's attention was on the main hall at this time. When they heard Arbor's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. Princess Xiangchang covered her aching cheek and turned her head, pursing her lips. She originally wanted to yell at her, but when she thought of Zhongli Zhuwei's dead face, she was suddenly speechless. Her face was swollen after being kicked twice by this stoic face. Now that she saw her big brother Ali, she was actually a little traumatized and didn't dare to casually go over to look for a beating. Sir Jojo turned to look at Mo Lien and the other two and said, "This mystic realm is definitely not something that can be changed in 8 hours. You see, it's changing irregularly now. Moreover, the space has changed once, but the time hasn't changed." Prince Mo and the others nodded. This secret realm should have an owner. Arbor's words caused an uproar among the crowd. The master of this secret realm is trying to think of a way to kill us. Therefore, there was no such thing as an 8-hour cycle. The master of the mystic realm must be hiding somewhere, and when he noticed someone walking into the boundary, he would flip time and space. If everyone was caught off guard, they would definitely be tricked by it. A sweet-looking woman walked out from beside Gui Xuan and said with a smile, "But I still have a question. Just now, during the space swap, everyone escaped the boundary. Then the space flipped, and we were flipped from the ground to the surface. Then, everyone lost the gravitational pull and fell down. Why is everyone fine?" A light bulb lit up in Gu Yishuan's mind, and he nodded solemnly. "That's right. Why?" Sir Jojo blinked and looked at Mo Lien, then at Duan Yu and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. No wonder these people were falling down like dumplings. So it turned out that they couldn't float after losing the gravitational pull. Chapter 3167. Thinking of this, when she saved Huang Sheng, the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal also floated down while carrying her and didn't fall down at that time. She even mocked Huang Sheng for being an idiot and asking why he couldn't float. Now, it seemed like they couldn't float either. The master of this mystic realm couldn't control a transcendent realm. This thought suddenly flashed through Sir Jojo's mind, and he glanced at the woman who spoke. He remembered that this girl seemed to be the Long family's Long Min currently. They didn't seem to have any conflicts, but because she was a member of the imperial capital's Long family branch, Arbor couldn't develop any feelings for her. The little fellow pursed her lips and replied irritatingly, "It depends on cultivation. Your cultivation isn't high enough, so who's to blame?" Long Min still had a sweet smile on her face and wasn't angry. On the side, Gui Xuan couldn't help but feel angry. Looking at this stoic face's smug attitude, he felt his hands itch. That smug look on his face was really infuriating. "It's not like your cultivation is high, so why are you so smug?" Sir Jojo turned around, but before he could take a step, he saw a person jump out from the water-blue membrane outside the hall with a whoosh. It should be said that it was a guy who bounced out from the water-blue, rippling membrane. Bang! It heavily smashed out of the boundary and landed in front of them. "Oh my God, my waist." Mata clutched his waist that was about to break. He looked up and happened to meet the little stoic's wooden face. His mouth instantly twitched, and he felt terrible. "Ah, ha, what a coincidence, Jojo, Crown Prince, everyone, you're all here." Mata held her waist, like a woman who was 8 months pregnant, and walked a few steps forward with her belly bulging. Arbor looked at this guy expressionlessly. "How did you roll out from inside?" Mata instantly looked conflicted. "How did I roll out? I flew out myself. Okay." Seeing Sir Jojo's wooden face and disdainful eyes looking at him, Mata instantly felt stifled. "Ah, all right, Jojo, since you're here, then go in and play. Who knows, we might be able to clear all the levels and get the grand prize." Everyone perked up their ears to listen to Mata's words. When they heard this, they all gathered around. Longmin smiled and said, "Little brother, can you tell us more about the situation inside?" Mata gave her a sideways glance. "Who are you?" He was talking to Qiao. Why were all these people swarming over? Are Xian and the others inside? There are a lot of people inside. The Holy Sun, the two from the Pangu clan, and Queen Fu Sha from the Dafeng tribe are all here. Then how did you get out? The little stoic looked him up and down in displeasure. Were you chased out by someone? Mata rubbed his nose awkwardly. No, I came out by myself. Then it must have been spat out by this water-blue, film-like barrier. The little stoic said expressionlessly. Mata was speechless. Actually, I failed to clear the level. Mata scratched his head and excitedly took out a fist-sized stone that emitted a lustrous white light from his pocket. But I got this reward, a divine stone for cultivation. Gui Xuan exclaimed in shock. He had seen it in a book left behind by his ancestors. Chapter 3168. This kind of stone was specially provided for God-tier masters to cultivate. It was extremely precious and very rare in the world. Even in the Divine Prefecture, such a fist-sized divine stone was rarely seen in the black market. Even if they failed the trial, they could still obtain such a large divine stone. Everyone's mood became excited. Holy shit, this was the right way. This was the right way to open the mystic realm. They came to the mystic realm to fish for treasures. They had suffered enough along the way. After coming to the mystic realm, they had been on tenterhooks for so long. Finally, they could come into contact with the door of treasures. Ha 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 ha. Let's go. Arbor shook his little chin at Mata. Mata hurriedly waved his hand. We can't go in. Those who were ejected, can't go in again. As he said that, he chuckled and scratched the back of his head. I'll wait for you here. I reckon Fatty and the others will come out soon. I'll let them know then. Lord Jojo was very unhappy. He took out a storage talisman. Come here. Everyone! Exclamation point. Was there anyone who cheated like you? If the mystic realm really had a master spirit, it should have destroyed you cheater first. Mata's eyes lit up. Oh my Jojo, you're so smart. Come. Quickly take me. What I love the most is following Xiao to take risks, rob, together with her. He happily allowed himself to be stored inside Xiao Mu's storage talisman. Arbor stuffed the talisman under his sleeve. In fact, he had already moved into Paradise Planet and placed Mata on Paradise Planet. That guy was her important companion. Of course, she wouldn't be at ease putting him in a storage talisman. Who knew if the storage talisman would be sensed by the barrier when they entered, and the storage talisman would be torn apart. As for her Paradise Planet, as long as she didn't casually open this spirit realm, no one would sense the spirit realm's aura from her. Moreover, she was inexplicably confident that even this Sun-Moon mystic realm couldn't compare to her star realm. The Sun-Moon mystic realm wanted to crush her star realm. It would be impossible for him to even dream about it in his next life. Sir Jojo took a step forward expressionlessly and led the way to the front of the hall that was surrounded by circles of water-blue ripples. Mata picked a peach on Paradise Planet and was nibbling on it when he suddenly remembered something and exclaimed, Ah, Jojo actually recovered. Lady Jojo curled her lips. What a slow-witted fellow. The group of people had just arrived at the entrance of the main hall when they heard two pong-pong sounds. A pair of dusty young men were suddenly thrown out and were thrown next to the pillars of the main hall. Arbor turned to look at them and saw that it was the crown prince of the Duke of Eternal Peace, Mo Lu, and the idiot prince of the underworld continent, Ming Bao. Ming Bao saw the two of them at a glance and hurriedly jumped up with a smile. Ayaya, Divine Prefecture's crown prince, crown princess, nice to meet you. Oh, haha, Prince Shinzangzhou is here too. And this is? The little stoic walked past him and didn't even spare him a glance out of the corner of her eye. She directly climbed up the steps and stood in front of that circular arched entrance. Ming Bao didn't retreat in the slightest because of the little crown princess's cold expression. He even walked forward with a grin and hurriedly introduced her. Crown princess, let me tell you. Do you see the groove on that door frame? Put a spirit stone inside, and the door will automatically open. The little crown princess retreated a few more steps and stood next to him, Lien, and the others. Chapter 3169. Once she retreated, Long Min and the others impatiently squeezed forward. "Don't push," Gu Yishuan said in a low voice. "Since spirit stones can open this door, then we all have a chance to go in." Long Min took the lead and walked up the stairs, flicking the spirit stones she had prepared earlier into a groove above the door knocker. Dang! The door slowly opened, and Long Min happily stepped in first. At the same time, two people also appeared behind Long Min and quickly followed in. In less than 3 seconds, those two people were sent flying by the blue water membrane. With two bam-bam sounds, they landed heavily on the ground, unable to straighten their backs for a long time. Ming Bao pointed at those two and laughed maniacally. There are actually people so stingy, thinking of not spending a single spirit stone and sneaking in with others. My heavens, now we're in for it. Those two people climbed up from the ground, embarrassed, and squeezed forward to take out 2 spirit stones each. At this time, Gu Yishuan and the others had already walked in. Those two people flicked the spirit stones into the groove, but after waiting for a long time, they didn't see any reaction from the door. The other person's expression changed. As if unwilling to give up, he took out another spirit stone and tried again. In the end, there was still no reaction. As if their parents had died, the two of them looked at each other with teary faces. They were both regretful and angry, thinking that if they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have coveted that small advantage just now. Arbor saw those two people standing at the door and blocking the way, so she said, "Please make way." She didn't let the others enter the house first because she was being modest. The reason was that she couldn't let others follow behind her and take advantage of her. So the best way was to let them all go in first, and Sir Jojo and his group of relatives and friends go in last. How could Prince Mo and the others not know what the little fellow was thinking? They didn't show anything on their faces, but they were secretly laughing in their hearts. Those two people were very angry that they couldn't enter even though they had the door, but when they saw Sir Jojo coming forward, they couldn't help but roll their eyes. One of them licked his lips and said with a smile, "Crown Prince Consort, why don't you put us into that storage talisman as well and bring us in together?" "Sure." The little crown princess raised a finger and gestured for them to keep quiet. She even looked left and right with her small head, which made the two people feel a little creeped out. There was nothing around here. What was the little crown princess looking at? The main spirit is secretly watching you from the shadows. Take a guess. If I put you into the storage talisman and bring you in, will the boundary of the secret realm crush you and the storage talisman? The two men shuddered and broke out in a cold sweat. When he looked up again, he saw that Arbor had already opened the door to the main hall with spirit stones and was the first to enter. Mo Lien and the other two entered in a single file. Naturally, they paid the spirit stones as well. Huang Sheng and Old Pa, who were following behind them, also hurriedly took out 2 spirit stones and threw them into the groove above the door knocker. The group of them walked along the ground that was paved with large pieces of bluestone bricks. Along the way, they felt that the entire main hall was empty. "Jojo, can I come out?" Mata asked excitedly. "It's better if you don't come out," Arbor said mildly. "I suspect that this main spirit is eerily watching us. It can't sense where you are, but that doesn't mean it doesn't want to eject you." Chapter 3170. If you appear beside us, it definitely won't let you off. Mata thought about it and agreed. He said with some vexation, "This way, I won't be able to see what's going on outside. But let me tell you, there are pits everywhere in this main hall. You have to be especially careful when it asks you to pick a door or passageway. You'll suffer greatly if you pick the wrong one." Arbor blinked. "Get Xiao to throw you a demonic pupil, and you'll be able to see the outside environment." Mata was silent, evidently going to ask Xiao what a demonic pupil was. Arbor didn't mind and walked forward with Mo Lien and the rest for a while. At this time, they heard Mata's cheerful voice. "Jojo, I can see it. Xiao said it's fine to throw this eye on you. That way you'll have this eye. As long as you walk, I'll be able to follow you wherever you go. I'll be able to see the outside environment clearly. Haha." Emrich, the demonic pupil, was originally an accessory of Xiao's little brother, the demonic pupil seed, so it naturally wouldn't harm its little master. Sir Jojo. Throwing it on Jojo's body was indeed the best option. Forward? Right. Continue forward. There's only one door ahead, so you don't need to make any choice. After entering, there are 2 passageways, so you'll have to choose. Mata was mumbling something inside the cell. Meanwhile, the little monk was sprawled on Mo Lien's shoulder with a sleepy expression. Arbor looked back and saw that the little fellow couldn't even lift his eyelids. He hurriedly said, Kong, do you want to sleep? How about sleeping in the storage talisman? The little monk hurriedly lifted his eyelids and shook his head with a resolute expression. This young monk isn't sleepy. This young monk is just a little hungry. Benefactress, give this young monk a peach to perk himself up, and this young monk will immediately be energized. Emolien, do on you. And the venerable peach blossom immortal looked at him exasperatedly. Arbor expressionlessly handed him a watery peach. The little monk's eyes immediately lit up. He opened his small mouth and was about to take a bite when he suddenly realized that the peach in his small hand had disappeared without a trace. He raised a hand to rub his eyes, and his spirit suddenly roused again. He hugged Lien's slender neck and cried out in shock. Benefactor Crown Prince, it's bad. This little monk's peach has been stolen. Lien didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The peach in the little monk's hand must have been taken away by the master of the secret realm. In the secret ground, it could control the sun, moon, and universe. Yin, yang, and the 5 elements were all under its control. Right now, all it had to do was take away a peach from the little monk's hand. It was way too easy. Oh, my little monk's peach. Xiaomu didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and she took out a slender, transparent bottle from her inner world. There was a faint, captivating red liquid flowing inside. It was very pleasing to the eye, and it instantly made the grieving little monk's eyes pop out. Benefactress, what's this delicious thing? A suspicious liquid seeped out of the corner of the little monk's mouth. Arbor patted his head and stuffed the bottle into his hand. Hold it properly. Don't let anyone snatch it away again. The little monk nodded repeatedly and muttered something. Then, this little oddball used a circle of dazzling golden Buddhist seals to surround himself. He was indeed willing to go all out for the stutter. After the little monk protected himself with a protective circle, he sprawled on Mo Lien's back and fiddled with that thin bottle to open. Chapter 3171. The faint fragrance of peach blossoms immediately wafted out of the bottle. The venerable peach blossom immortal's eyes immediately brightened. Jojo, I want one too. Duan Yu quickly swept the venerable peach blossom immortal with a disdainful gaze. This guy wouldn't even let go of a child's food. Sir Jojo was already thoroughly aware of the venerable peach blossom immortal's foodie nature. She didn't mind and took out several bottles of peach juice from her pocket, giving each to the 3 of them. She used the peaches piled up in the storehouse to make them when she had nothing to do. The steps were very simple. First, she separated the peach juice from the flesh, then chilled the peach juice. Finally, she added in some tiny pieces. A bottle of very tasty peach juice was made. Sir Jojo's culinary skills were mediocre, but he was truly very good at brewing wine and making fruit juice. Right now, it was a scorching day inside the Sun Moon Mystic Realm, and the temperature was just right. There was no need to mention the sourness of a bottle of chilled fruit juice. The little monk finished the entire bottle in one go. Afterwards, he stretched out his chubby hand and waved it at Arbor, calling out childishly, Benefactress, this young monk isn't full yet. Arbor couldn't help but be amused by him. You want to be full of fruit juice? Then how many bottles do you have to drink? The little monk suddenly turned his head sharply and looked at the empty main hall behind him. He asked with a frown, Benefactress, why do I feel like someone is following us? Sir Jojo feigned ignorance. Who is following us? You're thinking too much. All right, now that you're full, come down and walk a few steps to avoid gaining weight again. The little monk slid down from Prince Mo's back and muttered as he strode with his short legs. This young monk isn't fat at all. On the other hand, Benefactress, your face is a bit rounder than when we first met. It's obvious that you gained weight. Arbor, Emolian couldn't help but be amused when she heard this. She took out a roasted chicken drumstick from her inner world and waved it in front of the little monk. Kong Kong, eat this roasted chicken drumstick. Kong Kong solemnly raised his small face. This young monk is vegetarian all year round and doesn't touch meat. Ba, don't tempt this young monk with a chicken drumstick. This young monk won't look at it. Duan Yu's mouth twitched. The venerable peach blossom immortal couldn't help but laugh out loud. No matter how he looked at this little monk, he was adorably silly and funny. I'm not eating. If I don't eat, I'll have to take advantage of myself. Emolian smiled and shook the roasted chicken leg in her hand. Hey, you can give me the roasted chicken leg. In a flash, the venerable peach blossom immortal snatched the roasted chicken drumstick from Emolian's hands. He called out, Jojo, give me another pot of peach blossom wine. It's perfect for my roasted chicken drumstick. Gluttonous. A faint smile flashed through the little stoic's eyes, and she took out an unopened jar of peach blossom wine. Just as she opened it, she heard, gulp. The sound of saliva being swallowed could be clearly heard by everyone. The little monk abruptly turned his head and saw a thin and long braid slightly shrinking behind the pillar. The smile in Emolian's eyes deepened. He couldn't hide it any longer. It's about to jump out. Look at your little appearance. Your innate glutton nature has already been revealed without a doubt. From the moment you snatched the little monk Kong Kong's peach, Arbor and his group already knew what method to use to lure out the main spirit in this mystic realm. How about we finish eating before leaving? Sir Jojo suggested. We're not in a hurry anyway. Okay, I'll make some soup pancakes for you. Put in some mushrooms and beef. Chapter 3172. Suddenly, there was a slight movement in the air. An invisible hand grabbed at the roasted chicken drumstick in the venerable peach blossom immortal's hand. How could the venerable peach blossom immortal let the little main spirit grab it? He dodged to the side and waved the roasted chicken drumstick in his hand, praising it. Delicious. The little main spirit hiding behind the pillar could not take it anymore. She suddenly jumped out from behind the pillar and shouted with her hands on her hips, You! Put down the chicken drumstick in your hand. Everyone looked up and saw the little wimpy child's small hands and feet. Looking at her small body, she should be a 5 or 6-year-old child. Her voice was thin and shrill, like a little girl's. When they took a closer look, they could not help but be slightly stunned. That child's face was covered in a layer of monkey hair. From afar, she looked like a little spirit monkey. She could not have transformed from a spirit monkey. Right Arbor looked at the child carefully again and confirmed that she should be a human. But for some reason, this face, seeing that they were all looking at her, the little girl subconsciously shrank back behind the pillar. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. As if she had thought of something, she said softly to the little girl, You can come out now. Look, you've been here alone for so long. You must be very annoyed. It's good that you come out and we have a chat with you. I'm not going to talk to you. The little girl stuck half her head out. Her long and thin braids swayed behind her. Arbor could not help but laugh. She took out 2 small bottles of peach juice and waved them at her. You don't want them? The little girl immediately ran out from behind the pillar. With the speed of a 100-meter dash, she pounced over and snatched the 2 bottles of juice from Sir Jojo's hands. Kong Kong blinked his adorable eyes, put his palms together, and chanted, Ba, my dear female benefactor, you were the one who snatched my peach just now, weren't you? Arbor's mouth twitched. The little girl with the monkey hair on her face and slightly narrowed pupils turned around and glared fiercely at the little monk. Stupid monk, what are you nagging about? Who took your peach? I didn't. Young female benefactor, you haven't wiped the peach juice off your mouth. Scram! The little girl waved her sharp little claws at him. The little monk immediately glanced at Arbor pitifully. Benefactress, she's especially fierce. Help this little monk educate her. Arbor raised his hand and rubbed his little bald head. This little girl has been locked up here for so long. It's inevitable that she's in a bad mood. Kong Kong, you have to be nicer to others. All right then. This little monk will share half of my vegetarian buns with her in the future. The small monk made a difficult decision. His expression was that of a brave warrior breaking his wrist. Arbor couldn't help but laugh. She wasn't a vegetarian. He could eat all kinds of meat and fish, so why would he want half a vegetarian bun from you? What's your name? Arbor asked. That little girl was wary of men like Mo Lien and Duan Yu, but she inexplicably wanted to get close to Arbor. Sister calls me Little Monkey. She blinked and hugged the peach juice tightly, refusing to let go. However, her eyes kept staring at the roasted chicken drumstick in the venerable peach blossom immortal's hand. Little Monkey? What kind of name was this? Xiao Mu creased her brows. Is your sister the master of the sun, moon, mystic realm? The little monkey nodded and stretched out her little claws, attempting to snatch the roasted chicken drumstick in the venerable peach blossom immortal's hand. Chapter 3173. Arbor saw an old cross-shaped scar on her palm and couldn't help but ask, "What happened to your hand?" Little Monkey's eyes reddened sadly. When my sister left, I wanted to go with her, but I can't get out of this hall. Every time I go out, I'm bounced back. Every time I go out, I'm bounced back. One time I got hurt. Shall I change your name? No. Little Monkey suddenly jumped up and ran away. I'll be called Little Monkey. I'll be called Little Monkey. Arbor seemed to have thought of something and looked at her in a daze. Jojo. Mo Yin saw that she was in a daze and quickly reached out to tug at her. What are you thinking of? Nothing. She just vaguely thought of something in the past. Back then, she seemed to have been so lonely for a period of time. She quickly composed herself and winked at Mo Yin. She turned her head slightly and said, "Let's continue forward." Little Monkey's sister was the owner of this mystic realm, and from what Little Monkey said, her sister seemed to have left a long time ago. So the person who had been changing spaces in this mystic realm, wanting to kill more people, was actually Little Monkey herself. Arbor thought of this and couldn't help but sigh softly. He didn't know how the people from the temple got the right to enter and exit the mystic realm. According to Little Monkey's words, her elder sister should be a reclusive senior expert. Perhaps she was thousands of years old. Arbor's group walked forward and passed through the side door of the hall. Sure enough, they arrived at the two passageways. They couldn't see the end of the left and right passageways. For a moment, they were in a dilemma and didn't know how to choose. At this moment, Mata said happily, "Jojo, take the left, the left." I took the right passageway just now. There were 9 treasure rooms in front. I randomly went into one and picked up a stone and was bounced back out. I'm guessing that the left passageway should have an even bigger treasure. Sir Jojo paced back and forth between the two passageways. Then he stopped and looked carefully at the crooked characters carved into the stone wall. Jojo, stop looking. Many people have studied it here, but they couldn't figure out which country's words came from even after a few hours. Mata snorted. Don't waste time. Listen to me. Arbor tilted his head and stared for a while. Suddenly, he said, "Hey, wait." She reached into her inner world and took out a handwritten letter. She flipped through a few pages and then flipped through a few more pages. She tilted her head and compared the crooked characters on the stone wall. Her eyes suddenly lit up. Here. She pointed to the passage on the right. This way. Mata was dumbfounded and shouted from within Paradise Planet. Hey, Jojo, isn't this the path I took before? That's not right. That's right. You're on the right track. But I was ejected. That's because you're unlucky, Jojo said expressionlessly. Mata thought about it and realized that his luck was definitely not even 1/10 of Jojo's. Jojo, how can you be so sure that I'm on the right track? My master told me, Xiao Xiao said with a face full of confidence. Seeing that everyone was dumbfounded, the little guy flipped open his handwritten letter and pointed to the wall. Look, my master wrote it. This bird character means stop moving forward. Chapter 3174. Everyone gathered their heads together and looked at the strange characters circled in red on the wall and compared them to Jojo's master's handwritten notes. Sure enough, her master had written the same bird language and even circled it with a red circle, and below it was a small word, stop. Look, my master wrote this too. Sir Jojo exclaimed happily pointing to the bird language on the right side of the passage, and showed them the handwriting on the little notebook. Her master had added two very obvious words under the bird text: treasure. She had even drawn an arrow, which meant to move forward. Holy shit, everyone was dumbfounded and looked at each other. Jojo, the owner of this arcane realm, could it be it's your master? Sir Jojo scratched his little head, shook his head, and said, impossible. My master has never been to this place. How do you know? I guessed. Sir Jojo said seriously. My master can't be bothered to come to a place so far away. She doesn't even have time to take care of her child. Besides, the owner of this arcane realm should have been unable to leave this arcane realm from the beginning, just like the little monkey. How could my master have been imprisoned for so many years? It's impossible. Right, child? The little one's expression froze, and her eyes shone brightly. What was the name of her master's son again? Why did he have such a bad memory? Or did little Tree say that her memory was still sealed? Jojo. Emolien reached out and held her little paw. It's okay if you can't remember. You'll remember more and more slowly. Arbor nodded and hurriedly pulled him to the passage on the right. Let's go. Following the passage on the right, there was really no obstacle, and they came to the 9 small stone rooms that Mata had mentioned. Jojo, I entered the 5th stone room just now, and there was a stone inside. After I picked it up, I was ejected. Sir Jojo paced back and forth in front of the 9 small stone rooms, and suddenly noticed a line of small words clearly engraved on the door of the 1st stone room. The correct way to enter the next stage. Please choose door number 5. Everyone almost burst out laughing as they asked, Himata, we didn't open the 5th door after seeing this line of words, did you? This IQ, how could it be so straightforward to clear a mystic realm? Who knew how many generations had been scammed by the 5th gate? Sir Jojo was laughing in his heart, but he did not show it on his face. He hurriedly flipped through the omnipotent treasure book that his master had left behind, searching back and forth on the few pages of notes about treasure hunting in secret realms. Here. She was a little excited. She ran up with the handwritten letter and looked at the bird text beside the door. She pointed at a door and said, Here. That's it, door number 5. Emolien, Duan Yu, and the other 2, including the little monk, all came over to watch curiously. Sure enough, the bird characters left on the 1st door matched the row of numbers in the little fellow's master's handbook. The little guy said excitedly, Look, my master is really a god. Her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 can actually correspond to more than a dozen different bird characters. Everyone nodded in unison. The bird characters engraved on this door were one of the dozen ways her master had marked out the numbers, and one of them, Jojo, Morong Sun, left this behind? Duan Yu asked in bewilderment. Chapter 3175. They didn't expect His Excellency Murong to be so erudite and multi-talented. Emolien shook her head and explained to Duan Yu. Jojo also has 2 mighty masters and ant masters who can tear open the void of the star domain and track us here from thousands of miles away. Jojo has an impression of them, but the memory fragments are a bit fragmented, so he can't really explain what happened. Inside Paradise Planet, Mata had already fainted from crying and was rolling back and forth, pounding his chest and stamping his feet. Jojo, you cheated, Jojo, you cheated. Mata, the 5th door you picked was actually door number 2. Sir Jojo told Mata with schadenfreude, after matching the characters marked on the door. You have to learn more about culture, Sir Jojo said earnestly. Otherwise, he would really be an idiot if he couldn't even figure out what door number was. Mata. Roll. I really can't live on being despised by Sir Jojo like this. Arbor led everyone through the 1st door, only to see that the small stone room was completely empty. Everyone was startled at first, but then they walked inside. They walked out of the small stone room's back door without any obstructions, and a lush little garden appeared before their eyes. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment. What was going on? Weren't they going to get the treasure? They didn't even see the treasure, but they ended up passing through an empty stone room. Arbor blinked and comforted the men. It's fine. Let's continue forward. The treasure shouldn't be far from us. Mo Yin's mouth twitched, and she suddenly had the urge to laugh. I wonder if those two students from the Hong Academy guessed the right room. Duan Yu curled his lips. Just now, Huang Sheng and Old Pa had followed behind them. As soon as they entered the main hall, they very consciously cupped their hands in farewell and took their leave. After all, the two of them had already basked in Arbor's limelight, so they were too embarrassed to continue following behind other people's teams to pick up scraps. After all, their friendship hadn't reached that level yet. There's an arch bridge up ahead. Arbor led them towards the arch bridge. As soon as they reached the center of the bridge, they saw a small flag with a piece of cloth tied to it waving in front of them. The words on the cloth read, "Please enter the 9th archway. You only have one chance." A group of people stood in the middle of the bridge and stuck their heads out to look under the bridge. Sure enough, they saw 9 neat rows of small arched holes under the bridge. They were man-made, and each arched hole could only allow one person to enter by bending down. Only those who were petite and petite could enter. Arbor and Mo Yin jumped under the arch bridge. Now that they were familiar with the path, they found the crooked character that corresponded to the number 9. Xiao Mu ran inside eagerly and took out a small purple-gold lacquer box. "I found this." The little monkey didn't stray too far from them. Instead, it followed them all the way. At this moment, he was already dumbfounded what was going on. These people were so lucky to have come all the way here. Their luck was too scary. How many people, under these layers of choices, had their hair pulled out and looked haggard, but what about them? It was too easy. They ran all the way to the 9-arched bridge. It was over, it was over, it was over, it was over. The little monkey was so anxious that he stomped his feet and frantically hopped up a tree. He scratched his ears and cheeks, but couldn't think of a way to stop them. Sir Jojo turned to look at the little monkey's hiding spot. He then opened the box to reveal a small golden key. "Please use the golden key to open the door named Justice among the 5 doors in the passage ahead." So it was said that those who were cultured could travel the world without fear. Chapter 3176. If they hadn't freaking seen Jojo's master's personal letter, who would have known that these messy characters were actually called Justice? They stood in front of the passage, next to the 5 golden doors. No matter how they tried to match them, they couldn't connect this string of crooked and strange characters with the word justice. They silently exchanged glances. They had to admit that they were probably not cultured enough. Lady Jojo expressionlessly set down her master's personal letter. "I think the only explanation is that the previous owner of this mystic realm and my master should be from the same era, so their characters can be used together." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal immediately nodded in agreement. "I think my Jojo's words make a lot of sense. That should be the case." Duan Yu and Mo Yin silently glanced at him and simultaneously mocked in their minds. "I think your moral integrity is worrisome. Aren't you just Jojo, who's always right, and clearly follows Jojo?" The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at them suspiciously. He kept feeling that these two fellows' gazes were a bit strange. Lady Jojo stepped forward and forcefully kicked open that golden door with a flying kick. Everyone instantly felt that it was a bit shocking the instant Lady Jojo kicked open the door. She even very cautiously dodged to the side and then activated a defensive barrier. After waiting for a moment, her large, round eyes swiveled before she expressionlessly removed the defensive barrier. She said dryly, "Oh, there's no mechanism." Ha! The little monk had just started laughing when he was startled by the little monkey who abruptly flashed to his side. "Wow! Little benefactress, why didn't you make a sound when you walked? You gave this humble monk a fright." The little monkey glanced at him before striding to Arbor. "Who exactly are you?" She had stayed in this mystic realm for who knew how many centuries, but she had never seen someone as strange as this sister. She could actually clear all the stages without any obstacles. Was she still far from the destination? The little monkey solemnly sized up Arbor. "Could it be that you recognize the characters that sister wrote?" Jojo stretched out his hand to the little monkey. "Come." The little monkey hesitated for a moment, but in the end, it couldn't hold back its curiosity and raised its little hand. Arbor picked her up and looked into her eyes. She raised her small head slightly and fixated her bright eyes on Xiao Mu, just like that. If this little girl's face wasn't covered with a layer of monkey fur, she would be a pretty little fellow. Arbor simply carried her to the side and sat down. "Little monkey, how long have you lived here?" Little monkey shook his head. "I can't remember." In any case, for as long as she could remember, she had already stayed in this secret realm with her sister and depended on each other for survival. She had heard her sister mention that she was picked up by her sister. Where her elder sister brought her back, she was covered in cuts and bruises. Not a single piece of her flesh was intact. She was already on the verge of death. She thought for a moment. About 200 or 300 years ago. "Little monkey, you want to kill everyone who came to this mystic realm in batches, don't you?" Arbor and the others already knew that the main spirit of this sun-moon mystic realm was filled with murderous intent towards them and wanted to exterminate them. The little monkey's face instantly darkened. Because they all deserve to die. In the past, sister and the ancestor of that temple had some friendship. Chapter 3177. So, I did him a favor and made an exception to allow his descendants to enter the mystic realm every 10 years to find their own opportunity. But those people are too greedy, Little Monkey said with dissatisfaction. They are getting worse with each generation, using evil thoughts time and time again. Especially in the past 30 years, those bad guys from the temple have been greedy every time they enter the mystic realm, becoming more and more abominable. This time, those people from the temple used some kind of secret technique and actually let a group of people barge into the transportation talisman array for no reason. They sent more people in, definitely for the treasures left behind by my sister. Little Monkey sneered and said, "They all deserve to die here, for their own greed and obsession." This mystic realm couldn't hold on for much longer. Once every 10 years, these people would plunder the treasures inside. As time passed, the spirit treasures and spirit energy would gradually thin. If this continued, it wouldn't be able to support the operation of this mystic realm. And she wanted to stay here and continue to wait for her sister. Her sister would come back. Little Monkey firmly believed this. So, she couldn't let these damned people destroy the entire mystic realm. Little Monkey wanted to protect the sun-moon mystic realm, protect her sister. These bad guys, no matter how many of them came, she had to let them all die here. Have you ever thought that perhaps your sister won't be able to come back anymore? Xiao Mu understood the little monkey's thoughts after thinking it over carefully. She said it so softly, and it seemed to have agitated Little Monkey. She jumped up from Arbor's lap and shook her head repeatedly. "Impossible. Sister will definitely come back. She will definitely come back." Although she didn't know why her sister suddenly disappeared in this mystic realm, Little Monkey firmly believed that her sister wouldn't leave her alone. Arbor raised her hand and patted her head. "Many times, we will encounter some irreversible factors. Maybe it's not that she doesn't want to come back, but that she can't come back at all. Just like her master and martial uncle, they were targeted by the heavenly Tao and refused to come back. Wasn't this an irreversible force?" Little Monkey's head drooped down, and she said pitifully, "Little sister, then do you have a way to find my sister?" Arbor was put in a difficult position. She didn't even know what Little Monkey's sister looked like. Where's she going to find her? Little Monkey was a smart child. He immediately understood and said, "Little sister, hurry up and pass the level. After you pass, you'll be able to see what my sister looks like." And Mo Yin, Duan Yu, and the others looked at each other, feeling that it was a bit shocking. This 100-year-old little monster kept calling them Miss Jojo. "Did you know that your Miss Jojo was only 16 this year?" As she spoke, her expression suddenly changed and a cold light flashed in her eyes. "Those flies are here again." Arbor was taken aback. He immediately thought that it might be Xian and the others. She hurriedly said, "Don't be in a hurry to kill them. Many of them are my friends. Where have you taken them all?" Little Monkey pursed his lips. "I left them wandering around the maze." "Little sister, do you want to go and see them? I could take you there. If you take me there, then wouldn't I have wasted my effort in passing the level?" Little Monkey pursed her lips again. "Don't worry, I won't go back on my word." Chapter 3178. Sir Jojo nodded his head in satisfaction. All right then, let's go take a look at them. As the master of the Sun-Moon Mystic Realm, Little Monkey naturally had a thorough grasp of the space-time of the Mystic Realm. She didn't seem to use much strength, but Arbor and the others only felt the space in front of them shift slightly. When they landed again, they were stepping on soft grass. Arbor saw Chi Xian and the others at a glance. They were running back and forth in the neatly trimmed forest in front of them, scratching their ears and cheeks. The trees in the forest were all short shrubs. The entire green forest maze wasn't big, but there were countless winding paths inside, making one's head dizzy. When Xiaomu looked over, she could see a lot of people circling inside. The trees were only as tall as a person's waist, and they could easily see the right path if they raised their eyes. However, no one could see it. It was as if they were bewitched as they randomly hacked at the trees. What was even stranger was that the forest seemed to be immune to all kinds of spiritual energy. No matter how many punches and kicks these people made, the trees in the forest didn't move at all. Little Monkey said proudly, "They've all fallen into an illusion. Right now, they still think that they're in a large forest with ancient trees." Arbor looked at her and patted her head. She pointed in the direction of Chi Xian and the others. "Let them out." Little Monkey snorted. "If we let them out, the others will definitely follow." Arbor looked carefully and saw that there were many unfamiliar faces. After pondering for a few seconds, she nodded and said, "Let them out. Don't worry, they won't be able to take anything from this mystic realm. Not only that, I can also give you some spirit stones and black spirit jades, so that this mystic realm can continue to be maintained for a while." Little Monkey heard this, and her eyes lit up. She reached out and shook Arbor's clothes. "Little big sister, you're really a good person." It was the first time Arbor had heard someone call him a good person, and his expression immediately became a little strange. She was used to hearing other people call her little stoic, little pervert, and little evildoer, so when she suddenly heard someone call her great person, she instantly felt a bit awkward in her heart. Prince Emo suppressed his urge to laugh and said with a serious expression, "Jojo, we don't have much time left. We have to hurry up and rescue Chi, Xian, and the others. We still have to continue clearing the level." After he finished speaking, he gave his wife a meaningful glance. "Wife, I found the treasure you wanted long ago. We still have to rush back to the capital." Sir Jojo nodded in understanding. He turned to the little monkey and said, "Hurry up, let's not dawdle." The little monkey stretched out his hand and gently clenched his fist. However, the green thicket in front of him seemed to have come alive. Piece by piece, it quickly moved to the sides and arranged itself. Suddenly, a small path that could accommodate two people walking side by side appeared in the middle of the house. Miss Chi was originally fighting with an enormous ancient vine tree monster. Her small face was flushed red, and she felt that she was about to be unable to take it anymore. Just as she was about to summon her summoned beast to help, she suddenly discovered that the tree monster in front of her seemed to have been struck by a tornado and disappeared in an instant. She couldn't help but turn around with a dumbfounded expression. It was as if she had seen a long-lost relative. Her eyes reddened as she looked at the small crimson figure at the end of the small path. Chapter 3179. Jojo. Chi Xuan's shout attracted the attention of the others. At the same time, Queen Fu Sha and her people from the Dafeng tribe, Sit Yi, Liang Qingqing, Xiao Yi, and Ao Yi were all there. In addition, Madame Guan and the two from the Panga clan also walked out. Other than these people, there were many faces that Arbor was unfamiliar with. They were probably some of the people who were forcibly sent into the teleportation array. Jojo, Little Fatty, and the others hurried over as well. They really looked like brothers who had not seen each other for hundreds of years. They quickly surrounded Sir Jojo in a circle. One by one, they began to complain. Chow, where did you run off to? Oh my God, you don't know how unlucky we were. In the blink of an eye, you and Prince Emo disappeared. How can we endure this? Ever since we separated, I haven't had a good day for half a minute. If we weren't being chased and killed, we would be locked in a forest of vines and trees, fighting with a bunch of monster vines. It's so tiring. Sir Jojo listened to their complaints with an expressionless face. Chi Xianxian couldn't help but look him up and down. She exclaimed, "Jojo, you've recovered. How have you been recently?" Lord Jojo said in an infuriating manner. The journey was very smooth. Everyone, although Jojo's face was expressionless, there must be a lot of drama going on in his mind. Everyone thought. At this moment, although Sir Jojo didn't smile, he must be laughing at them for being so unlucky. Queen Fu Sha of the Dafeng tribe led her 7 subordinates to Arbor. She smiled and clasped her hands. "Thank you for saving me." "It was just a matter of convenience," Sir Jojo said calmly. Queen Fu Sha suddenly felt like she couldn't continue chatting with the little crown princess. She didn't understand what was going on. "Are you done chatting?" Little Monkey snapped. "Now, I'm going to teleport them out of the hall." "Wait." Arbor threw out a storage talisman that glowed with purple light. Little Monkey was so angry that he stomped his feet. "You're doing it again. I didn't say anything when you cheated and sucked a person into your talisman. Now, you actually... to think that it would become even worse." "Ah!" Sir Jojo kept Situ, Chi Xianxian, and the others into his storage talisman. Then, he turned around and smiled at Little Monkey. "It's done. Okay, your sister." Little Monkey really wanted to ridicule the young lady in front of him. Sure enough, he was someone who would take a mile after being given an inch. "We're on the same team, so of course we have to stick together. We were separated because of an accident." Jojo blinked and said, "Now that we have a chance to be together, of course we can't be separated." Little Monkey was stunned. Then, he drooped his little head and nodded listlessly. "You're right. When I'm alone, it's really boring." Arbor walked up and patted his hand on her head. "Aren't you with us now? Look, we have so many people to accompany you. You can even find a little monk to play with and chat with." Little Monkey's little face immediately darkened. He curled his lips and said unhappily, "I hate talking to long-winded monks the most." Chapter 3180. The little monk quickly said, "This young monk is only talkative, not long-winded. Benefactress, don't misspeak." Duan Yu couldn't resist chuckling. He walked up and scooped up the little monk. "All right, let's go." Should they go back and continue clearing the trial after being delayed here for so long? Perhaps it was due to their blind confidence in Sir Jojo, but they felt that there would definitely be a huge surprise waiting for Sir Jojo at the end of this trial halt. Very abruptly, a stern rebuke came from behind them. Arbor and the others turned a deaf ear to it, so they naturally wouldn't obediently stand still like this. But soon, they felt a sword aura whistling towards the back of one of them. The speed wasn't bad, but this kind of speed was still too slow for them. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal chuckled and turned around to flick his finger. After a crisp clang, the spirit sword in the attacker's hand was broken into 3 pieces and fell to the ground with clinks and clangs. That person looked at them with an extremely unsightly expression. His dark eyes were filled with disbelief. "Don't be afraid, everyone. Attack together. After completing the mission, everyone will be rewarded." Someone shouted, and suddenly, everyone started moving. They weren't only targeting the little Stoic and Prince Mo's group. They didn't want to let Queen Fu Sha, the Jing sisters from the Panga clan, and even Madame Guan off. To be more precise, these people who forced their way into the array were indeed aiming to kill them. From their tone, they seemed to have accepted a mercenary mission. Arbor narrowed his eyes. This was a good business. He wondered how much their lives were worth. This group of people seemed to be on steroids as they brandished their weapons and charged straight at them. Just as they were about to close in, Arbor shouted in a low voice, "Little Monkey, why aren't you expelling these idiots?" The little monkey's face was red from holding back his anger. After a long time, he finally whispered in exasperation, "You think I don't want to? I tried. These people use some kind of secret technique to force their way into your transportation talisman array and sneak in. Not only that, he even has a jade talisman that is specially designed to restrain me. This jade talisman was secretly developed by the master of the deity hall to counter me. The little monkey drooped its head dejectedly. This jade talisman has a trace of my sister's aura. I can't do it. Arbor nodded. Okay, let's fight then. There were so many of them. Did they think that there was no one here? In a fit of anger, the little fellow released Situ, E, and the others from the storage talisman. Senior brother Situ, were these people the ones who chased after you all the way? It's them. Situ, E, and the others nodded repeatedly. It's not just the 20 or so people in front of us. Arbor nodded. Let's go. We'll catch a few of them alive and ask them about the situation. With that said, the group of people didn't hold back and directly rushed forward. Each of them used their spiritual power, and after summoning their weapons from their consciousness, they entered a chaotic battle. These people should be mercenaries who have accepted the mission. Don't be polite with them, Arbor said coldly. At this time, the mercenaries couldn't help but be a little surprised. They originally thought that Situ, E, and the others had already been expelled from the hall, so they dared to come here so impudently, wanting to deal with Arbor first. Chapter 3181. In any case, the mission this time was based on headcount. The more headcount they obtained, the more generous the commission they could receive. Unexpectedly, Situ, E, and the others didn't disappear. Previously, when Sir Jojo used the storage talisman to cheat, not many people detected it. Now, when she let him out of the storage talisman again, there was a flash of light. The field was filled with Situ, E, Little Fatty, and about 20 people at the same time. Little Fatty rubbed his palms and chuckled, abruptly summoning his divine beast, the dazzling iron-shelled tortoise. He weighed the double-headed hammer in his hand and abruptly took the lead to charge into the group of mercenaries. Afterward, Duanmu Qing's with spirit swiftly crept up and strengthened a defensive barrier outside Little Fatty's earth shield. In terms of team battle experience, no one was more experienced than the Seacone Planet Battle Team. When this group of people had nothing to do, they would study all kinds of cooperative battle tactics. Therefore, they could coordinate and execute more than a dozen battle tactics in just a few minutes. They were terribly sullen just now. A group of bastards played tricks in the forest, causing them to be flustered at first. They had to deal with the giant tree vine monster in the illusory array, and they had to deal with this group of small rats, so they were infuriated beyond words. Now that they had the chance, they naturally had to get back at them completely. The mercenaries started to run out of luck. They didn't expect the other party's counterattack to be so fierce. Their team was scattered in no time. They weren't even a mercenary group to begin with. How could they have any teamwork ability when a group of more than a dozen mercenary groups gathered together to form a group of stragglers? Now that they were suddenly scattered, those mercenaries panicked a little, and a few of them immediately wanted to slip away when they saw that the situation wasn't right. Doya narrowed her eyes, and a surge of water spirit instantly smashed onto one of the mercenaries. She quickly pounced over, and with a vigorous body, she used her knee to push against that person's chest. Without saying a word, she pulled out a sharp blade tied to her calf and cut that person's throat with a cold look in her eyes. This set of movements was done in one go without any fanciful movements. Arbor nodded inwardly, full of admiration for senior apprentice Sister Doya in his heart. This chaotic battle simply didn't take long before it was declared over. Arbor pulled the hair of one of them, making the ordinary-looking man raise his head. "Did the temple give you a mission to kill?" Arbor asked coldly. The man stiffened his neck and didn't reply. "Who's your leader?" Arbor's eyes turned cold as he continued to ask. That person was in pain and refused to say anything at first. Arbor couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him and directly used a dictum talisman on him, making him confess everything. This time, the temple had gathered close to 1,000 level 8 and above spiritual masters and wanted to force their way into the array to secretly deal with them. It was said that the leader was a level 12 great spiritual master called Xiong Hao, who had some tricks up his sleeve. When Arbor heard this person's name, she felt a little familiar, but she couldn't remember if she had interacted with this person before. When Arbor asked the man about the undead puppet, the man seemed to be at a loss. Obviously, He was unaware of this matter. As a result, Xiao Mu's expression instantly darkened. Therefore, the temple didn't just send this group of mercenaries to kill them. He also made 2 backup plans. If the mercenaries weren't useful, he planned to use this special army of undead puppets to harm them. Chapter 3182. It was a beautiful dream, but unfortunately, the reality wasn't so perfect. Arbor kicked the delirious mercenary away, then turned to look coldly in Jing Minyao's direction. Do you want to die again? Jing Minyao only felt the anger in her body dissipating. She almost couldn't control her emotions. Arbor looked at her coldly. This woman had been secretly observing her since the beginning. Her gaze was like that of a venomous snake, making Jing Minyao somewhat unhappy. She didn't have the energy to deal with her now, but that didn't mean that this woman could continue to provoke her. She was still thinking about the Jing family's soul congregation bell. Arbor looked at her with a flicker in her eyes. If she took the soul congregation bell from the Jing family, she might be able to use a secret technique to directly nurture Elda Senior Sister into a godly realm expert. Elda Senior Sister Su Shanshan's talent was much higher than Jing Minyao's. It was just that the spirit energy in the lower star domain was scarce back then, so the people in the lower star domain cultivated slowly. If they cultivated in the same environment, with eldest senior sister's talent, her cultivation wouldn't be inferior to Princess Jing's. Thinking of this, the little fellow's eyes faintly lit up. She turned to look at Princess Jing. Princess Jing had been very cautious about Mo Lien and Arbor all this time. These two had left a deep impression on her. If it wasn't necessary, with her cautious personality, she didn't want to continue interacting with these two. Now that Arbor's meaningful gaze swept over her, she would be lying if she said her heart didn't thump. Princess Jing. Sir Jojo suddenly spoke. Jing Linyao's heart skipped a beat. She nodded at Arbor fearfully. What orders does the crown princess have for me? I see that your arm is injured. I have a good blood-staunching powder here. Do you need it? Jing Linyao's heart instantly went off. Her expression was tense, and her smile was very stiff. No need. Would this stoic face be so kind-hearted? Usually, when they met, she would not even look at the two sisters in the eye. But today, she was suddenly so amiable. It was as if she had completely changed her temperament, causing them to be on guard against her. Jojo pursed his lips and turned his head away with a bored expression. He ran to Prince Mo's side and held his hand. We're leaving. Little Monkey, I won't take my companions in for the time being. Jojo said to Little Monkey, Look, they just helped you kill those evil guys. You can keep them with me. The little monkey pouted. But the rules of our Sun-Moon mystery realm, Jojo suddenly took out a bun. Hey, I have a delicious meat bun here. The little monkey smelled the fragrance and almost drooled. It hurriedly ran over and stretched out its little hand. Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. Everyone was speechless. They didn't expect a bun to be able to subdue the little main spirit of the Sun-Moon mystery realm. Arbor smiled and held her little hand. He handed the bun to her. Let's go. In a flash, Jing Minyao only saw the figures in front of her disappear. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. Arbor's group was nowhere to be seen. Jing Minyao was instantly angered. Chapter 3183. Big Sister, what do you think is going on? Jing Minyao stomped her feet in surprise. You heard it just now? That monkey-like monster seems to be the space spirit of the Sun-Moon secret realm. Princess Jing was much smarter than Jing Minyao. How could she not know what Jing Minyao was able to see through? But because she was a smart person, even if she knew something, she would only keep it in her heart. Unlike Jing Minyao, she wouldn't say it out loud. They are going to the deepest part of the hall. Jing Minyao stomped her feet anxiously. Didn't you hear what they said? That little bitch let the monkey-like space spirit take her there. So what if they go? Jing Linyao looked at her sister with a smile that wasn't a smile, her eyes full of ridicule. Can you stop them? Can you stop them? In such a big place, not to mention they didn't know where to stop them. Even if they did, how could they stop Arbor's group? This sister of hers, she always couldn't see where she stood. she would suffer in the future. Seeing her sister's sloppy attitude, Jing Minyao couldn't help but stomp her feet in anger. They must be going to get the Sun-Moon Twin Wheels. Big sister, why aren't you worried? Don't you know what the Sun-Moon Twin Wheels are? It's a weapon formed from the essence of the sun and moon. Naturally, it's much more powerful than man-made weapons. It's the only divine weapon in the world, big sister. We can't just give up like this. The reason why she was willing to follow the temple to this secret realm was mostly because of this unparalleled divine weapon. If she could get her hands on such a sharp weapon, let alone a mere arbor, she would be able to do anything. A dark light flashed in Jing Minyao's eyes. Even if a dozen arbor came, they wouldn't be a match for her. At that time, she would definitely be able to wash away her shame. She must let this Qiao Mu also taste the terror of death. Then she would torture her bit by bit, letting her experience humiliation and terror before she died. Thinking of this, a trace of smugness appeared in Jing Minyao's eyes, as if Arbor had been tortured by her like this. Jing Linyao could clearly see the emotions in her stupid sister's eyes. Seeing this, he couldn't help but sneer. I advise you not to do anything stupid again. You've been repaired by the soul-gathering bell once. Jing Linyao said coldly, there's no second chance. Jing Minyao's fingers retracted. Her thin fingernails subconsciously shrank into her palm, piercing her heart with a slight pain. She hated it the most when her elder sister spoke to her in such a tone. It was as if she was just a useless member of the family. In fact, her cultivation had already far surpassed her elder sister's innate talent. Jing Linyao, a great spiritual master, dared to challenge her, a level 3 divine master. She really didn't know who gave her the courage. Jing Linyao looked at her expression and shook her head slightly. She was about to say something when she suddenly felt her body become light and uncontrollably bounced out of the secret realm. After landing on the ground, he took a closer look. At this time, the curtain of night had already completely darkened. At this moment, she was standing outside the palace's gate. An almost inaudible sound came to her ears. Jing Linyao almost reflexively dodged to the left and jumped up with one hand on the ground. Chapter 3184. The sword in her hand slid across the other party's throat without hesitation. A faint sound came from the darkness, and Jing Linyao's heart tightened. Just now, she heard the other party's voice, and it didn't sound like a living person. Moreover, she could also feel that when the tip of the sword slid past the other party, it didn't feel like it was slipping through the flesh of a living person. What kind of monster was hiding in the dark? Jing Linyao's eyes flashed with a trace of forcibly suppressed calmness. Suddenly, she turned her hand and shone the special night pearl in her hand, and suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. Jing Minyao also couldn't help but scream at that moment. Heavens, the hall was actually blocked by a group of rotten corpse puppets, and there were several corpse puppets nearby with their backs to them, fighting to tear something apart. Jing Minyao looked around in a panic and immediately recognized the person being torn apart. It seemed to be one of the mercenaries who had chased them before. She screamed again uncontrollably. Jing Linyao fiercely glared at her several times, scolding her countless times in her heart. Idiot. She thought that there wasn't enough trouble here, so she had to scream like a ghost to attract the attention of the corpse puppets. How did such a stupid brain grow to this size? Sure enough, after hearing Jing Minyao scream, the corpse puppets, which were originally quite quiet, raised their grayish-white eyes mixed with red blood vessels and looked at the two sisters without blinking. Jing Minyao was almost scared out of her wits. She hurriedly shot a fire spirit, but it didn't land on the corpse puppets. Instead, it fell on the ground, provoking the corpse puppets to roar. The corpse puppets roared angrily and rushed in their direction. Jing Linyao gritted her teeth and waved her hand to throw a ball of fire. She didn't care about that stupid sister anymore and rushed in the direction where there were fewer corpse puppets. Arbor and the others returned to the golden door that was kicked open by Sir Jojo. Let's go. Sir Jojo was moved. He felt that he would be able to see the little monkey's sister soon. She was now really curious about the little monkey's sister. She had created such a huge sun-moon mystery realm all by herself, and she had stayed in this mystery realm with the little monkey for who knew how many years. How could she not feel lonely and uncomfortable? In this godforsaken place, there were only two people relying on each other for survival. If this continued, wouldn't they go crazy? Oh no. According to the elder sister, before she found the little monkey, she had probably spent a very long time alone in the secret realm. Thinking of this, Jojo felt an inexplicable sense of sadness in his heart. He actually felt a trace of sympathy for this sister that he had never met before. She didn't know why, but she actually thought so in her heart. The group of people followed Jojo through the passage without any obstructions. They looked at each other. The little fatty beat his chest and stamped his feet as he asked, You guys? All of you? Is this how you've been doing all this time? Fuck. Why did he encounter spatial spirit beasts and mutated plants along the way? Why was he fighting all the way here? Wasn't the battle in full swing? Sob, sob, sob. The heavenly Tao is so unfair. How could there be such a huge difference between people? Sir Jojo said expressionlessly. I already said that it was a smooth journey. Do you think I'm lying? Ask Mata if you don't believe me. Mata's handsome face didn't have any extra expression. Chapter 3185. On the way here, Sir Jojo had already dealt him a crushing blow. If possible, he didn't want to acknowledge anyone or speak to him right now. You'll understand if you watch quietly, Mata said enigmatically. The little fatty rolled his eyes at him in exasperation. Why was this guy still pretending to be mature? Did he think that he would completely believe him if he said that? Hua Tao whispered to Lu Yu, Jojo's dog's hit luck is simply heaven-defying. Jojo even chose the correct fifth door? Qi Xian asked in bewilderment. Many people have been conflicted about the fifth door for a long time. She just wanted to know how Jojo managed to make his choice in one go. It seemed like there were several places that needed to be chosen along the way, and the questions and answers all appeared strange. Could it be Qi Xuan's eyes brightened? That half of the map I bought previously worked? Mata. As everyone conversed, they successfully arrived at a courtyard that was filled with the fragrance of flowers. This small courtyard was filled with rare, medicinal herbs. They were divided into different categories and cultivated in small plots. The medicinal herbs were growing very well. Even if it had been a long time since someone had taken care of it, it still looked like it was thriving. Arbor liked this simple and elegant small courtyard at a glance, and he had a rough idea of what was going on. This was probably that sister's living quarters. There was a small stone mill in the center of this small courtyard, and a sword was stabbed into it. MHM. It was a dusty sword whose material couldn't be discerned at all. It looked like a plaything that was retrieved from a garbage dump. It suddenly appeared in front of everyone, just like that. Duan Yu and Mo Yin exchanged glances before saying, It seems like we have to pull out this sword before we go over. Lady Jojo blinked her eyes, but before she could say anything, she heard the little fatty volunteer, I'll do it. Everyone silently averted their gazes. Little fatty moved his chubby little legs and ran over as if he was flying. He placed his hand on top of the grindstone and gripped the hilt of the sword. Suddenly, he seemed to be having an epileptic seizure. He held the worn-out sword and danced around. Then, he fell to the ground with a bang. Even his hair was emitting bursts of green, smoke the corners of everyone's mouths twitched. Holy shit, a divine sword with a lightning attribute. Mata jumped up excitedly. Xian go. Qi Xian swallowed her saliva and shifted her gaze to the man with the afro. She swallowed her saliva again as she had a feeling that she was going to be cheated. Go Xian. Everyone encouraged her. Don't worry. Go pick it up. Of course you're not worried. I'm the one who's going to get electrocuted. Qi Xian rolled her eyes in annoyance and walked forward with small steps. Her small hand slowly touched the worn-out sword. Qi Xian was completely focused. At this moment, her nerves were already stretched taut as she activated her Thunder Soul defense. Thank goodness. She breathed a sigh of relief. This lightning attribute sword was Zizi Qi Xianxian only felt her body swaying, and she almost couldn't stand steadily. Her eyes bulged slightly as she inwardly cried, "Oh my God." Thick smoke floated out of her mouth when she opened it. Her eyes rolled back, and she fell to the ground face up like the little fatty. Everyone covered their eyes, as they couldn't bear to watch. Chapter 3186. Xianxian looked so pitiful. The little stoic glanced sympathetically at our dear Xianxian, whose eyes were rolling back and forth on the ground, and walked over to her. Uffed. Mata couldn't hold back her laughter. After a spurt of laughter, she saw everyone's accusing gazes, so she hastily restrained her smile and sternly said, "Your Highness the Crown Prince, I think it's more appropriate for you to go up." The spectators all nodded in agreement. She was trying to trap the Crown Prince Duan Yu, inwardly curled his lips in amusement. At this time, he jumped out with a swoosh and said with a look as if he was facing death calmly, "Your Highness, let this subordinate go down." Everyone, "What can you change if you come? It's just one more person lying on the ground." At this time, the little stoic had already helped Qi Xianxian up from the ground. She reached out to pat away the dust on Qi Xuanxuan's body and took out a small handkerchief to wipe Qi Xuanxuan's tan face. She said sympathetically, "Use more beautifying cream these 2 days. Don't scrimp, come get more from me when you're done." Our dear Xianxian blinked, and her clear eyes were practically brimming with tears. She didn't even need to look in the mirror to know what she looked like. Look at her head of beautiful hair. It was all curled up like noodles. Woo as they spoke, he had already rushed up to express his loyalty in front of Prince Mo. Arbor truly couldn't bear to see another person lying on the ground. So he coughed and said, "Aogi, come back." Sir Jojo skipped forward. "Let Jojo do it." Liang Qingqing pursed her lips and did her best to suppress her belly full of laughter. She coughed lightly and said, "Little junior sister, you can go up, but for safety's sake, you should cough. Activate a defensive barrier. Don't worry." The little stoic expressionlessly took out a dozen talismans and slapped them all over her body. 5 multi-defense talismans, several lightning and shock protection talismans in the end. She took out 8 diamond talismans and slapped them all over her body. She instantly felt comforted. Sir Jojo looked at him expressionlessly. I forgot. Everyone was speechless. Arbor took small steps and arrived in front of the stone mill. His 5 fingers moved slightly, and with the thought of, "Come on, Jojo, Sama is not afraid of you," he used some strength to grab the hilt of the sword that was stuck in the stone mill. The little girl used all her strength to pull herself out, and then staggered back a dozen steps. Prince Mo's eyes were sharp, and his hands were quick enough to catch her. Only then did she regain her balance. His little face was filled with confusion. The little fellow lowered his head and looked at the dusty, broken sword in his hand. He raised his head and looked at Emolian. Prince Mo's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He coughed lightly and said, "Jojo, you pulled it out." The jaws of his bad friends who were watching a good show instantly dropped. The little monkey's expression was even more exaggerated, and he actually fell to the ground with a clang. Where did this monster come from? For several hundred years, it wasn't like there hadn't been almighty people with heaven-defying luck who relied on guessing along the way, like a blind cat running into a dead mouse. But no matter who it was, they would be ejected at the stage of pulling out the sword, because no one had ever pulled out the thunderclap sword before. Chapter 3187. Little Monkey opened her mouth wide in an exaggerated manner, unable to close it for a long time. It was magical. She silently shut her small mouth. Afterwards, she stood up and strode to Qiao Mu's side. She tilted her head as she examined Qiao Mu from head to toe. Afterwards, she declared with certainty, "Little sister, you definitely have a very impressive sacred weapon on you. A sacred weapon that formed on its own at the beginning of the world. This divine artifact that was formed by heaven and earth on its own and had been polished for perhaps thousands of years was incomparable to those man-made ones. This divine artifact had the most supreme power in heaven and earth entwined around it. Once it appeared, all divine artifacts would submit, just like the sun-moon wheels. Even though it had been submerged for many years, its artifact spirit suppression still existed in this mystic realm, causing all living beings to not dare to act recklessly. Lady Jojo subconsciously blinked her eyes and raised her small hand to look at it. Sometimes, she could indeed feel the unusual flow of power in this bloodline. That was her Fushi greatsword. It existed, but she couldn't take it out for the time being. Her little hand touched it and gently patted Little Monkey's head. Arbor nodded and said, "You mean, the reason why this broken sword was tamed so obediently is because of the divine artifact created by heaven and earth in my body?" Little Monkey's eyes lit up slightly, and she felt closer to Arbor in her heart. This little sister was indeed a person of great fortune. She already had a universal saint tool in her body. Therefore, she was definitely not like the others who came here solely for the sun and moon wheels. She was indeed a little big sister who was completely different from others. It had to be said that the little monkey was very naive. He had inexplicably misunderstood in order to express the greatest goodwill to Lord Arbor. Little Monkey reluctantly gave up her treasure and said, "Little big sister, take this Thundercrash sword. It's not a broken sword. Its power is second only to the sun-moon wheels. The sword has the power of lightning attached to it, and it also has an artifact spirit space." Arbor looked down at the broken sword with a reluctant expression. "It's so ugly." Little Monkey, this little big sister was indeed a weirdo. She actually thought a divine artifact was ugly. Was this the logic of a normal person? Since when did humans become so strange? The little fatty jumped up and exhaled a puff of green smoke. "Jojo, you can contract with it. If even a spirit artifact requires a contract, then this saint artifact must also." Arbor's eyes lit up. He raised his hand and stroked the sword. Although the sword looked tattered, it was very sharp. The blood on her finger was sucked into the sword in an instant. Then, the tattered sword that was covered in dust released a strange light. The rusty stains on the body of the sword peeled off inch by inch, revealing a treasured sword that was flickering with purple light. The 3-foot-long sword was incomparably sharp. With a flick of his finger, the sword immediately let out a buzzing sound that lasted for a long time. Xiaomu felt a bit more joy toward it in her heart. She raised her hand to stroke this treasured sword and joyfully thought in her heart, it wasn't freaking a bitter journey of 1,000 miles in vain. He had obtained a peerless sword on this trip. Then, he thought about the sword techniques recorded in the Spirit Division record. He quickly found a sword technique that could complement this Thundercrash sword and unleash great power. Chapter 3188. Arbor withdrew Thunderclap into her conscious and reflexively checked the situation in her conscious. Her current liquefied conscious had already expanded. It was originally a jade ribbon-like stream, but now it had grown to the size of a river. Her liquefied spiritual conscious swayed as it flowed in the small river. It appeared very peaceful and tranquil. Above the river, the golden talisman jade tome and the Spirit Division record quietly hung. The Tianji treasure blueprint, ferrule, club, cauldron, startled swan dagger, boat, and other items also slowly flowed around the 12 jade slips in a miniature form. Apart from this, there were 2 more items in her conscious. They were the heavenly horsetail feather and a mechanism map that she had swindled from Qin and Lu Zheng not long ago. At this time, Thunderclap also flew over and proudly circled around the golden talisman jade tome. Then, it ran over to stir up trouble and lightly bumped the 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron in Arbor's conscious with its tail. The 9 stars mirroring the moon cauldron was unperturbed and ignored this fellow. Lady Jojo was afraid that it would stir up trouble and give her a headache, so she used her divine sense to stop it. After seeing that it quietly hung beside the golden talisman jade tome and didn't cause any more trouble, she withdrew her divine sense from her conscious with satisfaction. "Little monkey," Lady Jojo turned to look at her and said, "What other treasures do you have? Look, I still have so many companions." Little Monkey suddenly showed an angry expression and then roared. Except for the few of them, the others have been eliminated long ago. She was naturally referring to Qi Xian and the others who had been eliminated except for Mo Lien, Duan Yu, and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. If it weren't for this little sister, they would have been kicked out of the hall long ago. How could they continue to stay here and watch? Humph! Lady Jojo blinked and was about to have a good chat with this petty little monkey when the door to that room suddenly opened on its own. Arbor's group simultaneously turned their gazes to the room. A faint figure floated out from inside. Her long hair hung loosely to her knees, and she wore a dark purple, close-fitting robe with narrow sleeves. A faint smile appropriately hung on her ethereal and beautiful face. This girl was too beautiful. Lady Chow Chow glanced at her, and her eyes lit up. Jojo swore that she had never seen a girl more beautiful than the girl in front of her. She suddenly waved at her, and Chow Chow ran over to the girl's side. Emolian quickly called out, "Jojo." Arbor turned her head and waved her little hand at him, indicating that she was not controlled by the girl's powerful spirit. She was very conscious and wanted to get close to the girl. Sir Jojo could sense the strength of this girl's soul. The ancient aura that seemed to have existed between heaven and earth for thousands of years seemed to have flowed out from an ancient scroll of history. It was quiet and elegant, and it constantly touched people's hearts. This girl had an inexplicable, powerful aura that made people want to get close to her. She looked at Jojo with a smile, and Jojo looked back at her expressionlessly. It was as if a beautiful painting had been frozen in time. In this small green courtyard, everyone's eyes were on the two of them at this moment. Although it was the first time they met, some people's auras were very compatible even when they first met. For example, the two people in front of them gave off a feeling that they were rather harmonious. Chapter 3189. I'm Mo. What about you? Although her smile was faint, it made people feel a great attraction force. Jojo. Sir Jojo blinked his black almond eyes. Your little monkey's older sister. As he spoke, Sir Jojo thought about why little monkey was silent. He hurriedly turned to look at her. He saw the child standing dazedly beside Mo Lien with red eyes. Her small shoulders drooped. She looked like she wanted to come over, but didn't dare to. Mo raised her hand and waved at little monkey. The little monkey burst into tears and ran forward, jumping into Mo's arms. Unfortunately, Mo was only an illusion. In a split second, the little monkey passed through the illusory figure. Then, it turned its head and stared blankly at Mo, Tinga. It called out sadly, "Big sister." "I'm sorry." Mo's voice was weak. "Little monkey, I don't want you to see me like this." This was why she didn't want to show herself to little monkey, even though half of her divine sense existed here. Moreover, this half of her divine sense had been here for 200 to 300 years. In the end, it was about to run out of soul power and dissipate. "Older sister, when are you coming back?" "Little monkey, I can't come back," Mo said softly. "Liar, you said you'd always be with me." The little monkey's eyes turned red and red. Suddenly, he burst into tears. "You liar." She waited for her for 200 to 300 years. She guarded her obsession alone and watched over this secret realm for a long time. She wanted to wait for her to come back. But now, she was telling her that this obsession, she couldn't guard it anymore. Mo wanted to pat little monkey's head, but her hand passed through little monkey's withered hair. She looked at little monkey and said softly, "Older sister doesn't have much time left. Can you let me finish?" She turned to look at Arbor. A faint smile appeared on her face. "Jojo, I sense a familiar aura from you." She floated a few steps closer to Lord Jojo and said in a faint voice, "That's the aura of the void. I was once exiled to the void for 3,000 years. This mystic realm has always been drifting in the void. It drifts to wherever it goes." She looked indifferently into the distance, as if she was looking at an unknown space-time. She reached out and patted Arbor's head. "You too." Sir Jojo's heart seemed to have been touched. He stood there in a daze, staring at her blankly. Suddenly, a scene like this appeared in front of her eyes. An expressionless little girl was floating in the boundless void. What does the void look like? It was darker and purer than the night. Because no matter how dark the night was, there would always be stars and moonlight. But the void didn't. There was nothing in the void. It was as if JoJo was the only person left in the world at that time. JoJo walked slowly in the void. She couldn't see the road ahead and didn't know where to go. There was no living thing in the void. She didn't know if she should stop, but she firmly believed that if she stopped, she would die. No matter if she floated or walked, she always felt that she was moving. She was the only living thing in the void. Chapter 3190. JoJo didn't know how many years she had been drifting in the void, until one day, she suddenly saw 3 lightning flashes chasing after a piece of withered wood and continuously striking it. She used all her strength to fight against these 3 lightning flashes for a while and exhausted herself, but she still managed to protect half of the withered wood. Although this was only half a piece of withered wood that was on the brink of death, the little girl felt like she was hugging a ray of light when she hugged it. Although she was still drifting aimlessly in this void, she still believed that this half piece of withered would have vitality. She didn't know how much time had passed that day. The half piece of withered wood suddenly spoke. "My name is Chio-Chio Jojo. Jojo, Emolian, Duan Yu," and the others were anxious. When they saw her standing there in a daze, as if she was bewitched, they hastily ran up and shook her small body repeatedly. Arbor returned to her senses, and her eyes unwittingly swelled. She understood the feeling of drifting in the void all too well. No wonder Mo said there was a familiar void aura on her body. That was the same aura between the two of them. Mo said she had drifted in the void for 3,000 years. If that was the case, then perhaps JoJo would be drifting for even longer. JoJo already didn't remember, and she didn't want to remember these things. Those lonely and destroyed years in the void had already passed forever. Arbor glanced at the group of little friends that had gathered around her and suddenly smiled faintly. "I'm fine." Mo smiled at her and looked at the people around her. "Chow Chow, help me take Little Monkey out of here. I can give you this entire mystic realm. Except for the sun-moon wheels." Mo paused, as if to explain to JoJo, "The sun-moon wheels are my natal weapons and have been with me for a very, very long time. They won't obey anyone other than me, so I sealed them in the center of the mystic realm to maintain the operation of this entire mystic realm. Go and remove the seal. The sun and moon wheels will follow my aura. Once the sun and moon wheels leave, the entire mystic realm will collapse. Before that happens, you just have to take the mystic realm away." In other words, this senior called Mo wanted to give the entire sun-moon mystery realm to their Charles as a gift. When the onlookers heard this shocking news, they only silently digested it for half a second before collectively calming down. There was nothing that their Chiao could not encounter. "Little Monkey, you can leave." Little Monkey shook his head and looked at his sister with teary eyes. Big Sister has already left this place for another space-time. She will never be able to return. She looked sadly at the crying Little Monkey. "I didn't fulfill my promise. I'm sorry. Little Monkey, when I was in the sect, I wasted a lot of time chasing after a boundless dream. Whatever I've learned, I've only scratched the surface. There's no way I can undo the mysterious suppressive drug in your body. In the future, please ask this little sister to treat you properly." JoJo. Emma looked up at Arbor and smiled. "I'm going to disappear now. Can you help me take care of Little Monkey? She's very obedient, so you don't have to worry about her." Arbor nodded. Mo smiled faintly and nodded. "JoJo, you're much luckier than me, although I suffered a lot in the void." Chapter 3191. However, all the torment simply pales in comparison to the current happiness. Mo raised her small hand, subconsciously wanting to touch Arbor's face. However, she quickly discovered that she was merely a shadow, and all of this was merely frustration. A faint bitterness appeared on her lips. "It's truly regretful that I didn't get to know you in my life." Arbor's heart ached, and he tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Little monkey, I'll do my best." "Thank you." Mo smiled. Without any warning, she dispersed faintly like a broken shadow under the sun, abruptly disappearing between heaven and earth. Even after a long time, Arbor could still vaguely remember that smile of hers. It was faint and serene, like a lonely icicle flower in the depths of the ocean. It emitted a faint fragrance, endlessly attracting people. The little monkey started bawling bitterly. Arbor didn't stop her. She needed to release the grief in her heart to her heart's content. She had already waited for 200 to 300 years in vain. 200 to 300 years of obsessive waiting, 200 to 300 years of bitter waiting. In the end, all she got in return was nothing. Arbor's eyes stung a bit. Although the little monkey wasn't very intelligent, she was still a smart child. After crying for a while, she asked Arbor in a choked voice, "She's dead, right?" "She's a liar. She's lying to me. She didn't go to another space-time at all. She's dead, completely dead, right? She left that strand of divine intent behind, waiting for someone who can take me out of this mystic realm, because she knew that I wouldn't be able to get out on my own." As she spoke, her tears continued to fall. Arbor, Lien, and Duan Yu were all smart people, so they already knew Mo's true intentions long ago. She used all the wealth in the entire sun-moon mystic realm in exchange for the little monkey's freedom. This was her ultimate goal in keeping that strand of divine intent hanging around. The little monkey lay in Arbor's arms and bawled, heartbroken. She's dead, right?" Xiaomu stroked that child's head and nodded lightly. You can't sense a trace of her presence here anymore. Her soul had completely dispersed between heaven and earth, leaving no trace behind. But who knows? Arbor tried to talk to the little monkey in a relaxed tone. There are many things in this world that we don't know. Perhaps Big Sister was really like what she said and went to live in another time and space. That's still unknown. Amitba, benefactor, the dead cannot be brought back to life. My condolences. Moreover, don't listen to the nonsense of the benefactress and still have delusions in your heart. A human's soul has already dissipated, and it is impossible for him to go to some other time and space to be reborn. If you're still worried, this little monk can help you release the soul from purgatory. Recite the rebirth mantra. The corners of everyone's mouth twitched. For a moment, they really wanted to beat up the little monk. The little monk was speaking in a methodical manner, and his expression was very serious when he was muttering. Mr. Jojo, who had been exposed, was speechless. The little monkey turned around and glared at him. The little monk put his palms together and asked aggrievedly, "Did this little monk say something wrong?" Everyone rolled their eyes in unison. The little monk shuffled closer to Mo Lien and tugged at the hem of Mo Lien's clothes with his chubby little hand. Mo Lien looked down at him and said in amusement and annoyance, "If you keep muttering like this, I won't let you eat vegetarian buns tonight." Chapter 3192. When the little monk heard this, he quickly shut his small mouth. Arbor held little monkey's hand and stood up. "Little monkey, I'll preserve this mystic realm completely. You can still live here in the future, okay?" Little monkey's eyes reddened as she sniffed. "Really? Really?" "Yes." Arbor nodded at her and pulled her out of the courtyard. "Let's go. We'll talk after we get out. Miss Jojo, if we go out now, there are a lot of ugly monsters outside." Arbor paused and immediately thought of the corpse puppets that were transferred into the mystic realm. Anger flashed through her eyes. "Then we have to go out and clean up these things as soon as possible. We can't let them destroy anything here and waste Mo's efforts." Little monkey nodded his head vigorously. "Then I'll send you out. You have to be careful. Don't worry. We're experienced enough to deal with those guys." Little fatty crossed his arms and said with a black face. In the blink of an eye, Arbor's group was transported out of the hall. As soon as they steadied themselves, they smelled a fishy stench. Time and space had changed the scene under the blazing sun. A large group of corpse puppets were gathered together and trying to kill Princess Jing's group. Princess Jing and Jing Minyao's group, as well as the students from Flying Sword, Hong Residence, and Blue Ocean Academy were already exhausted. The sudden addition of Arbor's group made them feel invigorated. Jing Minyao glanced at Arbor unhappily. Although she didn't get along with this little crown princess, she had to admit that Arbor's group came at the right time. With the addition of this main force, they swept through the corpse puppets like a large-scale siege weapon. In just half an instance's time, more than half of the corpse puppets were cleared out. Jing Linyao wiped away her sweat. When she turned around, her eyes shrunk slightly. This group of people's fighting strength was really strong. But in reality, most of them hadn't reached the level of a level 10 great spiritual master. But their attacks were fast and accurate, and the way they attacked was extremely strange. Often, before the corpse puppets could react, two swords would attack at the same time and directly cut off their heads. What was even more shocking was that these people fought without any regard for their lives. However, up until now, not a single one of them had been injured. Not only that, when the people from Ice-Sealed City and Fire City killed a large group of zombies, the little crown princess actually followed behind them to pick up the scraps. This was really unbearable to look at. The young crown prince consort was in charge of cleaning up the battlefield at the back. Her hands were fast, and her sword was even faster. With just a few strokes, she had pulled out quite a number of crystal cores and collected them all into a small pouch. Seeing this, Jing Minyao was so angry that her heart trembled in pain. Just now, they were fighting to the death with the zombies outside. Their legs were trembling and their bodies were weak. They simply didn't have the time to collect the crystal cores on the ground. Who knew that the little crown princess would take advantage of it? It didn't matter if the crystal cores were swept away by their group or not. As long as the little crown princess took a fancy to them, they would all be swept away. Jing Minyao opened her mouth and wanted to shout, but what came out was heavy breathing. She was really too tired. At this moment, the hand holding the sword was still slightly trembling. Even if she opened her mouth, she didn't have the strength to quarrel with Arbor. Chapter 3193. Roar. The last corpse puppet was shot in the head by Situ E, and its roar stopped abruptly. Jing Minyao sat on the ground and gasped for breath. Arbor frowned and stuffed the corpse puppets' bodies into a storage talisman. He planned to bring them out and have Jojo's lotus burn them along with the talisman. After temporarily dealing with the corpse puppets, Arbor gave Prince Emo a look. The latter immediately understood and quickly flew to Jojo's side and took her hand. The young couple turned and ran towards the center of the sun-moon hidden realm. With the little monkey's guidance, the location of the sun-moon wheels was quickly determined. Where are they going? Jing Minyao hastily shot up from the ground. When she saw Qiao Mu running off with Crown Prince Emo in tow, intense jealousy flashed past her eyes. Third sister, when the corpse puppets pounced, you weren't injured, right? Jing Linyao suddenly stopped her and looked at her with a frown. Jing Minyao immediately showed an angry expression. What are you talking about? I have a divine armor protecting me. How could I be injured? Jing Linyao said indifferently. Although you have a divine armor, it can only protect the front of your chest and back. You still need to check the rest of your body carefully. You should worry about yourself. Jing Minyao snappily glared at Princess Jing and grinned mockingly. Although your spirit armor covers a large area, it won't be able to withstand the claws of the current corpse puppet. Princess Jing looked at her deeply, but didn't say anything in the end. She turned and ran in the direction Prince Emo and Arbor ran away. Jing Minyao was so angry that her mouth twitched. She threw the water bag in her hand to the ground. You're always lecturing people. She saw Jing Linyao run away and stomped her feet in anger. She quickly got up and followed. On the other side, when Arbor and Mo Lian's group arrived at the center of the sun-moon wheels, they saw many people standing there and fighting fiercely. The people fighting were Huang Yang, the strong man by Madame Guo's side. The other person was one of the Dafeng tribe's Queen Fu Sha subordinates. The people sitting in a circle were now looking at Xiao Mu and Mo Lian's group, who had just appeared with very complicated expressions. Damn it, why did they come here? Everyone felt a bit angry. It hadn't been easy for them to reach an agreement. They would compete here, and at that time, they would be able to determine who is the owner of the Sun-Moon Twin Wheels. But now, it's over. The people they didn't want to come here the most were here. Ba Shu's face changed, and he secretly glanced at Arbor's group. With a number of people in Xiao Mu's group, it was destined that they did not dare to rashly attack them. Even if they wanted to, they didn't have the strength. The Holy Sun stood up from the crowd and nodded at Arbor's group. He explained to them calmly, "Everyone has decided to compete to determine who is the real owner of the Sun-Moon Wheels. You came at the right time, just in time for this competition." Arbor saw that the Holy Sun's expression was very open. It didn't seem like he was pretending to be polite. He couldn't help but be curious. Didn't the Sun-Moon Temple enter the hidden territory so many times for the Sun-Moon Wheels? Why did the Holy Sun act like he didn't care about it at all? He didn't know if the Holy Sun had his own plans. Chapter 3194. The little fellow has some doubts in her heart, but her face is expressionless as she glances at the saint and asks, "Oh, how do we compete?" Saint Mi Yin smiles. Like this Huang Yang, he has already won 3 rounds in a row. Currently, the ownership of the Sun-Moon Twin Wheels belongs to him. That is to say, as long as the person who goes up to fight can stand at the end with a smile, the Sun-Moon Twin Wheels will belong to him. Arbor curls her lips and rolls up her little sleeves. "I'll go. Let's play with these people." "No!" A sharp voice suddenly interrupts Arbor's words. Arbor looks curiously at that person and sees that the agitated person is Chun Baojia. "What reason do you have to say no?" Miss Chow says unconcernedly. "Can you make the decision here? Didn't she see that even the saint invited them to join the team? Amir Chun Baojia wants to stop them. It's simply hilarious." "I don't agree." Chun Baojia's expression is very ugly as she shakes her head and says, "Just now, we have already decided to compete with a number of people. If we add more people halfway now, it will be very unfair to those who have already competed. The others are already in a mess, and when they see Lord Jojo, they are very flustered." Hearing Chun Baojia's words, they quickly echo in unison, saying that Lord Jojo and the others are not allowed to join. Otherwise, it will be breaking the competition rules and so on. Lord Jojo looks at them expressionlessly and reaches out to tug at her husband's sleeve. Emolian can't help but find it funny. She says with a cold face, "Since it's a fair competition, why not wait for everyone in the mystic realm to come before competing? You all have selfish motives, so it's normal that the previous competition didn't count." The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal is someone who likes to watch a show. Hearing this, he quickly nods and says, "Let's compete again. Let's compete again." Thus, the faces of Huang Yang and the others instantly turn ugly. "Haha!" At this moment, a slightly shrill voice comes from behind the crowd. "These friends are right. Since it's a competition for the Sun-Moon Twin Wheels, how can we miss out?" While they were talking, a shifty-eyed man walked over from the end of the path with dozens of men with round waists and thick arms. As soon as they arrived, everyone's expression changed again. Ba Shu jumped to his feet and pointed at them. "You dare to come here?" he yelled. These people were the mercenaries who had accepted the killing mission. The one leading them was Cheong Hao from the Lang mercenary group. It wasn't until the little stoic saw the person clearly that she had a slight impression of him. Her little hand subconsciously tugged at her husband's sleeve. Emolian looked down at her and couldn't help but nod. "That's him. The one we met in the north-facing Great Forest, the Lang mercenary group." At that time, Little Shui had subdued the innate water element, and Planet Shaji was about to open. "We hurriedly brought you there to level up, so we let this person go," Emolian said in a low voice. At that time, he couldn't care less about Cheong Hao. Jojo's situation was the most important. Only Duan Yu and the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal, who were standing next to them, can hear Prince Mo's low voice clearly. Cheong Hao had already led dozens of mercenaries to Ba Shu and the others without consulting anyone. Cheong Hao folded his arms and sneered. "We also want to participate in the competition. How about it? Are you scared?" Ba Shu swatted at Cheong Hao. Chapter 3195. Scared of you. Xiong Hao exuded vast and mighty spiritual energy, and he abruptly blocked with his fist. Bam! Ba Shu's palm collided with Xiong Hao's fist, and he immediately flew back several steps. His feet scraped against the grass, and he managed to stabilize himself with great difficulty so that he wouldn't fall to the ground in a sorry state. However, this exchange made Ba Shu realize that his cultivation was far inferior to the other parties, and his expression instantly turned very unsightly. The little stoic blinked and eagerly rolled up her sleeves. Normally, there weren't many opportunities to fight. What kind of competition was this? It was a legitimate opportunity to beat someone up, so Sir Jojo had to firmly grasp this opportunity. Her red battlesuit was finally put to good use. However, Mo Yin held her small hand and tugged at her, exasperated. She said quietly, "Be good and wait a bit longer." This little fellow definitely had a strange quirk. She got excited whenever she saw this competition. This guy's cultivation fluctuations are a bit strange. And Mo Yin knitted her brows and said, "Let them go first." Because they were in the same team for the time being, Commandery Princess Xiangchang reluctantly walked up and handed Ba Shu a healing pill for him to consume. This healing pill was a high-rank pill, so it naturally paled in comparison to the little stoic's concoction skills. However, it could temporarily slow down Ba Shu. It would be a lie to say that Ba Shu wasn't shocked. He didn't expect that a mere mercenary group leader's cultivation would be above his. That attack had secretly left an internal injury in his body. If he couldn't recover from it with a healing pill, it would affect his cultivation in the future. The little stoic whispered to her husband, "How did he suddenly become so powerful?" She remembered that that guy's cultivation was merely a level 12 great spiritual cultivator back in north-facing Great Forest, which wasn't far off from Ba Shu's cultivation. Logically speaking, the two of them should be evenly matched, but that attack just now caused Ba Shu to suffer quite a bit of internal injury. Mo Yin curled her lips coldly, and her gaze landed on Xiong Hao. He awakened a strength-type special ability. Mr. Jojo's face turned cold, and he looked at Xiong Hao suspiciously. To be able to accept the mission of the Shrine Massacre, there should be a certain connection between them and Tianyin. Therefore, the reason why Xiong Hao suddenly awakened a strength-type special ability was because of him. His body had been modified by Tianyun's medicine. Duan Yu furrowed his brows and commented, "His situation is a bit like a demonic cultivator who fused with a portion of a strength-type demonic beast." Mo Yin scrutinized Xiong Hao again before nodding. "MHM, but I can sense the fluctuations of a special ability inside his body." Espers could sense each other, but some low-level espers might not be able to sense high-level espers. There was no doubt about this. Sir Jojo asked curiously, "Do you mean that the reason why this guy became so strong is that he not only fused with the demonic beast's power, but also awakened a special strength-type ability?" The two of them nodded. Jojo was a little excited, and his small body leaped forward. Great, he finally found someone who could take a beating. Mo Yin facepalmed. She inexplicably read this sentence from the little fellow's sparkling eyes. 2 more chapters. Chapter 3196. Xiong Hao. The little girl leaped in front of him and sized him up. "Your opponent is me." A faint trace of anger appeared in Xiong Hao's eyes. Of course, he remembered this brat. In the great north-facing forest, he had suffered a great loss at the hands of this brat. Even now, he could not forget the pathetic state he had been in. But now Xiong Hao sneered. If this brat still thought that he would be trampled under her feet and abused as she wished like before, then she was truly too foolish and too naive. Xiong Hao wrinkled his nose slightly, and the corner of his mouth twitched unconsciously. "Little girl, I wonder if you've heard of this saying. A scholar who has been away for 3 days will return to his former glory." Boom! In the blink of an eye, Miss Xiao's eyes flashed fiercely, and a stream of water spirit fell, exploding at Xiong Hao's feet. At the same time, the startled swan dagger suddenly jumped out of her conscious and made a half circle in the air. With a buzzing sound, It stabbed straight at Cheong Hao's chest. Cheong Hao was a little flustered. Was this girl crazy? He had not finished speaking? Who fought like this? Couldn't he just let him finish his sentence? What was the hurry? Was there a need to be this anxious? Did she care about these few minutes? She did not want him to finish speaking. Of course, Arbor did not know that Cheong Hao was conflicted about his attitude. Since she had already made her move, she naturally had to give it her all. Of course, she was prepared for battle. Sir Jojo's attitude towards any opponent, no matter how small, was very serious. A large black saber appeared in Cheong Hao's hand, and he blocked the startled swan dagger. But Cheong Hao did not expect that this small dagger would be so powerful. When the back of his saber touched the dagger, a vast and mighty force hit him in the face, forcing him to retreat continuously. Several feet away, Cheong Hao's body swayed slightly. Cough, cough, cough. He choked on his breath and coughed a few times. His small rat-like eyes were now filled with blatant malice. That damn little girl. She actually dared to attack while he was not paying attention. How hateful. This wretched girl must have done it on purpose, catching him off guard and catching him off guard. Cheong Hao put his hand on his chest, which was surging with blood, and stared at Arbor with gloomy eyes. Don't think that you can beat me with a sneak attack. Many times, boom. Cheong Hao's body trembled when he sensed the aura of the wood spirit behind him. He rolled several times on the ground, dodging the wooden vines one after another. He quickly leaped to the side and rolled away. However, even though he reacted quickly, Arbor's wood spirit was even faster. The dozen or so wooden vines only paused for less than a second in the air before sweeping towards him in unison. Cheong Hao's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. In order to avoid the dozens of wooden vines, Cheong Hao could only roll on the ground to dodge. He was on the verge of tears. The way he rolled around on the spot was unsightly. This time, he had lost all his face in front of everyone. Arbor looked at him coldly and didn't say a word. In reality, the little stoic never liked to waste words with others when fighting. If you're fighting, then just fight. Where did all this talk come from? Cheong Hao was completely unaware that the little stoic was so straightforward. In the little stoic's opinion, who would have the leisure to chat with you while fighting? It was simply hilarious. Chapter 3197. Cheong Hao was naturally incomparably gloomy on the inside. He wanted to open his mouth to speak again and again, but he was interrupted by the stoic face every time. Now, he even had a bit of psychological shadow. He kept feeling that if he didn't bring out his true abilities and properly fight with this damn stoic face, he would definitely be out of luck. Don't be too arrogant. Cheong Hao hastily dodged a vine that the little stoic threw at him. His entire body abruptly emitted a sinister aura, and he yelled furiously, "Damn, ah!" The little stoic's attack landed squarely on his chest, and he flew back several steps. He shook his head with disheveled hair, and his eyes were brimming with resentment. Firebat! Cheong Hao suddenly tore open the clothes on his upper body, revealing his frail chest, as well as the strange fiery red demon patterns that covered his chest and abdomen. His shoulder blades bulged slightly, and his face was flushed red. Arbor actually wanted to see what he could transform into, so he simply stopped and calmly waited for him to transform. Before long, Cheong Hao's back seemed to have been cut open by a blade, and two blood-colored bat wings abruptly emerged. Was this the ability of fusing with the demonic fire bat? Arbor glanced coldly at the other party, then lowered his head to glance at the ground entwined with wooden vines, and his lips curled coldly. In the blink of an eye, the wooden vines on the ground all gathered together as if they were alive and swiftly swam toward Cheong Hao's feet. Cheong Hao flapped his two bat wings and proudly flew into the sky. He hovered in midair and hooted, "Damn girl, there's a path to heaven, but you won't take it." Hell, he suddenly felt a tremendous force pulling at his feet. When he looked down, a dozen wooden vines instantly rose up and rapidly wrapped around his legs in the sky. This irresistible suction force was coming from those wooden vines. Damn it, could it be that these wood spirits were still alive? Cheong Hao looked up furiously, and he involuntarily brandished the large black saber in his hand to hack at the wooden vines at his feet. Bang! His large saber actually bounced back with this hack, and the hand holding the saber's hilt felt slightly numb. His mind went blank, and disbelief flashed through his eyes. How could this be? Please, these are just wooden vines. How can they not be cut down by spirit weapons? While his mind was filled with question marks, the vines on the ground all climbed up and wrapped around Xiong Hao, forming a giant cocoon, sealing him inside without leaving a single gap. At this moment, everyone on the field was watching with an extremely serious expression. The saint was even more shocked. He had seen the little stoic fight several times before, but the little stoic had directly taken the shortcut many times. She would casually summon a powerful battle beast to confront her opponent and insta-kill her opponent in a matter of minutes. Although everyone was afraid of her, they still felt that her cultivation was only average. It was because the beasts around this stoic face were powerful that he could protect her, this weak little chicken. But now, the saint's view had completely changed. How terrifying! This girl's with spirit seemed to be endlessly released. Even now, it was still being released layer by layer. He saw Xiong Hao, who was wrapped in the giant wooden vine cocoon, slashing with his saber with a terrified expression. His face was somewhat distorted. The space inside the wooden vine cocoon was not small. Xiong Hao could still flap his bat wings while hovering in the air. Chapter 3198. Unfortunately, even if he had wings now, he couldn't fly out of this wooden cage. Cough, cough, cough. Xiong Hao gave up on his plan to hack at the wooden cage. Because this cage made of wooden vines was extremely sturdy, practically comparable to an iron bastion. Although he didn't know why, he was certain that the little stoic had planned to trap him in the cage from the start. Otherwise, she wouldn't have endlessly released the power of the wood spirit and caused the ground to be covered in these vines. At this time, there was dead silence, and no one knew what to say. They had all witnessed Arbor's methods. The most terrifying thing was that she dealt with a mutated demonic cultivator so easily. Everyone looked up at Xiong Hao, who was suspended in midair. The vines on the ground intertwined together and stretched all the way to the sky, building a giant wooden cage in the air. This caused everyone to feel a strange visual shock. No one could control the power of the wood spirit to this extent. Today was their first time seeing someone who could control the power of the wood spirit like this. Xiong Hao was currently locked in that wooden cage and had no way to escape. He could only pant slightly and subconsciously flap the wings on his back. Arbor glanced at him indifferently and lowered her head to look at her small palms. Her power of the wood spirit was naturally endless because of the existence of the sacred wood, the spirit of all living things in the world, and all the wood attributes in the world could be used by her, providing her with an endless supply of power. As for why this wooden cage was so sturdy, it was naturally because she added 3 solidifying talismans outside the wooden cage. You think you can chop these wooden vines just because you want to? You're simply daydreaming. A blue flame leaped out of Arbor's fingers. She looked up at Xiong Hao in the wooden cage and fired it at him without a second word. The flame wormed its way in through the gaps in the wooden cage and directly burned Xiong Hao's body. Everyone heard hissing roars coming from the wooden cage, and the dozens of burly mercenaries who came with Xiong Hao were already trembling in fright. They didn't expect that their captain, who was so powerful, would be completely unable to retaliate against this little girl. If that was the case, wouldn't they be courting death by coming here? Holy Sun Mayan stood up, coughed lightly, and said, "Facial paralysis, Crown Princess wins." No one had any objections. In fact, many of the people present wanted to back out. Since the Crown Princess was so powerful, what else could they do? What was there to fight? If he went up, he would be courting death. Arbor burned the guy for a while, and all they heard was the guy howling. She frowned and said coldly, "What a load of nonsense. Are you still not going to transform?" She didn't have a time to waste on him. What she wanted to see was this person's true strength. Since he had already fused with the power of the evil beasts and had been transformed by the heavenly fate, It was impossible for him to only have this little strength. A scarlet color flashed across Xionghao's eyes. His cheeks were red from the burning of the blue spirit cleansing flame, and his entire body gave off the smell of blood. He suddenly roared in the wooden cage. This roar caused everyone to jump in fright. How could that sound be human? It was clearly the roar of a wild beast. Emo Yin's eyes flickered. Her fingers moved slightly, and a black flame spread out from her fingertips. Chapter 3199. The black fire was ready to go at any time. If his Jojo was in danger, he naturally couldn't just stand by and watch. At the same time, Xionghao's body in the wooden cage suddenly underwent a drastic change. Amidst a series of crackling sounds, all the bones in his body were rapidly growing. His face underwent a great change. Everyone looked at him. Their eyes couldn't help but become a bit frightened. How is this still a human? This guy is completely like a huge bat. That pair of small eyes flashed with a trace of ominous light. Even his body completely mutated. Everyone was scared out of their wits. Subconsciously, they wanted to leave the battlefield. They felt that what happened next might be worse. Roar! Xianghao squatted in the wooden cage and let out an earth-shattering roar. The sound wave rushing out of his mouth was mixed with the sound of wind, causing people's eardrums to slightly hurt. Madame Goen was the first to bear the brunt of this roar. She felt a gust of wind blow in her face, and her hair stood on end. She couldn't help but sway a little and almost fell to the ground. Madame Huangyang hurriedly supported her and quickly pulled her to the back of the crowd. At this time, the crowd was already a bit chaotic. No one was a fool. How could they stand at the front and block a knife for someone else? So everyone wanted to squeeze to the back. In the end, it was Holy Sun Mi Yin and a group of temple guards and priests who were pushed to the front. The temple priest's face was somewhat unsightly. Holy Sun Mi Yin's face was somewhat indifferent, but his eyes were slightly cold as he raised his head and fell on Xianghao, who was suspended in the wooden cage in the air. He took a deep breath and slightly closed his eyes. What kind of existence is this heavenly fate? Is it a place to create monsters? Why did the Temple Lord join this heavenly fate organization, and why did he stubbornly bring the entire temple into this kind of situation? Arbor coldly looked at the rapidly transforming freak in front of him. At this time, Xionghao's eyes had already lost the last trace of human reason. He was like a huge bat with a human head, flapping his wings and fiercely hitting the wooden cage. After the rapid mutation, his body's toughness had greatly increased. After hitting it 3 times in a row, the wooden cage was slightly deformed. On the 5th collision, his deformed head popped out of the cage and got stuck between the wooden vines. He glared at Xiao Mu in front of him with a ferocious glint, and he opened his mouth to spit out a stream of air directly at Xiao Mu's head. Suddenly, Xiao Mu jumped up and twisted her waist in the air. With a beautiful spin, she landed lightly on a rattan tree and steadied herself. At the same time, the air current landed beneath her feet and exploded the wooden vines beneath her feet. Arbor flew up again and landed lightly on another vine. She looked coldly at Xianghao in front of her. She flipped her fingers, and a flying talisman quickly appeared in her palm. So disgusting, there's no need for it to exist, Arbor finally said coldly. Then he quickly rose into the air and flew in front of Xianghao. Through the wooden cage, he quickly shot 3 ice spikes at Xianghao's mutated giant head. Chi. The ice spikes all fell on Xianghao's head, but they were all deflected by him. Roar! He was enraged again and roared at Arbor. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.